Chapter 5092. Taoist Blue Feather nodded and looked around before walking to a corner of the main hall and sitting down cross-legged. The Golden Core disciple and several Foundation Establishment disciples he brought hurriedly sat down around him. Seeing Taoist Blue Feather leave, Xiaohua also found a place and sat down. Zhen Qing and the others naturally stood beside him. Zhen Qing wanted to ask something, but seeing that Xiaohua seemed to be meditating, she shut her mouth and closed her eyes to carefully comprehend what she had just learned. After the meal, Xiaohua suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the disciples of Ardent Fire Mountain in the distance and said, "Fire Qilin, come here." "Yes, Senior." Fire Qilin, like everyone else, was also meditating with his eyes closed. Hearing this, he hurriedly stood up and walked over. Taoist Blue Feather naturally heard Xiaohua's voice. He slightly opened his eyes and looked at him before closing them again. A trace of disdain appeared on his face. After all, Xiaohua was just an early nascent soul cultivator. In his opinion, Xiaohua was just an ornament. Now that Xiaohua took the initiative to look for Fire Qilin, it seemed that Xiaohua was overestimating himself. "Senior, what's the matter?" Fire Qilin respectfully saluted. Xiaohua smiled and said, "No need to be polite. Sit down." In front of Senior, this junior doesn't dare to be casual. Fire Qilin was puzzled and didn't dare to sit down. "Sit down. This old man has a few questions to ask you." Xiaohua looked at this Golden Core cultivator who was very different from before and said with some emotion in his heart. Fire Qilin looked at Xiaohua with a somewhat familiar expression, but after carefully thinking about it, he couldn't recognize it. However, he didn't say anything and carefully sat down. Xiaohua said, "This old man was acquainted with the 3 elders of Ardent Fire Mountain. I also saw you." Fire Qilin was startled and almost jumped up from the ground. He looked at Xiaohua in surprise and asked, "Senior, this junior doesn't have any impression of you?" This old man changed his appearance after becoming pregnant. "Naturally, you can't recognize me," Xiaohua replied with a smile. Fire Qilin suddenly understood and hurriedly said with a smile, "Indeed, this junior didn't think of this. It seems that this junior must congratulate Senior for successfully becoming pregnant." "Actually," Xiaohua nodded his head and indicated for the Fire Qilin to sit down. He said, "This old man's first question is, this old man is very clear about your aptitude. After so many years, you should have been pregnant a long time ago, but this old man doesn't see any signs of you being pregnant at all." The Fire Qilin's face turned a little red when he heard Xiaohua's question. He smiled bitterly and said, "Senior, you may not know this, but ever since the Sword Dao War, my Blazing Fire Mountain's 3 great-grandfathers fell in Sky Patrol City, and my Blazing Fire Mountain began to split. Since then, this junior has not been able to cultivate in peace. Moreover, without the support of great-grandfather, everything that I need for my cultivation has started to be lacking. If it weren't for my good aptitude, I'm afraid I wouldn't even be able to step into the middle stage of the Gold Core realm." At this point, the Fire Qilin mocked himself. "Actually, if I'm not even at the middle stage of the Gold Core realm, I wouldn't have so many troubles now." "Hee hee." Xiaohua smiled and said, "This is this old man's second question. Are you really willing to be the sect master?" The Fire Qilin opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but just like before, he swallowed his words. He closed his eyes and thought for a moment, and then said, "Since Senior has seen this junior before, you must have seen this junior before. This junior is actually self-aware. I know that I only know how to cultivate and don't know anything about the affairs of the sect. Moreover, in the past few hundred years, this junior has never thought that he would come to snatch the position of sect master. But, with the passage of time, the Blazing Fire Mountain today is no longer the Blazing Fire Mountain in this junior's memory, nor is it the Blazing Fire Mountain where you, a junior, can cultivate in peace. There is a group of cultivators fighting for fame and profit here. In order to get everything they want, they don't hesitate to tear apart their family ties. In that case, why don't you leave the Blazing Fire Mountain?" The Fire Qilin's words were not beyond Xiaohua's expectations. Xiaohua asked with interest, The fire Qilin did not hesitate this time and immediately replied, "How does Senior know that this junior has never left?" "Since you have left, why are you still here?" Xiaohua asked back. The fire Qilin smiled bitterly and said, "If this junior is not in the blazing fire mountain, where can I escape to? Besides the blazing fire mountain, is there any place in this world that doesn't have people fighting for fame and profit? If this junior leaves the blazing fire mountain, where can I cultivate?" Xiaohua understood the fire Qilin's pain and nodded. "So you came back?" "After all, this is the place where this junior grew up. After all, what can this junior do for the disciples of the blazing fire mountain?" The fire Qilin replied, "This junior doesn't want to see the blazing fire mountain decline like this. If there is a suitable sect master, can you leave with peace of mind?" Xiaohua suddenly asked. The fire Qilin was puzzled. "What does senior mean?" Xiaohua smiled and said, "Nothing, this is this old man's third question. You can do whatever you want. If you don't want to answer, then forget it. If there is a suitable sect master, this junior can naturally leave." The fire Qilin replied, "Unfortunately, Hua Hibiscus and Hualwan are barely satisfactory. I'm afraid they can't convince the disciples of the blazing fire mountain. Other than their strength being slightly weaker, they are more suitable to be the sect master than you in all other aspects," Xiaohua said ruthlessly. The fire Qilin was somewhat embarrassed and nodded. "What senior said is true. This junior also admits this point. Actually, this junior might as well say it more deeply. If not for Hua Pengfei and the others encouraging this junior really doesn't want to fight for the position of sect master. This junior only wants to stay in the blazing fire mountain and do some things within his power for the blazing fire mountain. AI, this is what it means when the tree wants to be still but the wind won't stop." Xiaohua sighed and finally said, "I hope that tomorrow your blazing fire mountain will have a good ending and a good beginning. Thank you, senior, for your concern." The fire Qilin stood up and said respectfully before slowly retreating. Hua Pengfei was naturally concerned. He transmitted his voice to ask what happened. The fire Qilin only shook his head and didn't say anything. He then closed his eyes and seemed to be meditating. One day and one night quickly passed. The nebula gradually became thinner and the first rays of dawn were about to arrive. At the broken gap of the Zhu Rong Palace, a faint light from the sky dispelled the darkness of the night. A wisp of light illuminated along the layers of broken walls and gradually fell into the dark red abyss. At the broken palace opposite Xiaohua and the others, a wisp of light flashed and some vague figures appeared. The fire Qilin had long been paying attention to the opposite side. Seeing the figures appear, he hurriedly jumped up from the ground and said somewhat impatiently, "Seniors, Hualwan has arrived. We should go over." Hearing this, Xiaohua moved and hurriedly stood up. However, when Xiaohua walked to the side of the fire Qilin, the distant Reverend Bluefeather didn't even open her eyes. The fire Qilin opened his mouth and wanted to wake Reverend Bluefeather up. Xiaohua smiled and said, "Don't worry, the other side only sent Hualwan. It won't be too late to wake Reverend Bluefeather up after Hua Hibiscus comes out." "Yes, Junior will listen to Senior's instructions." The fire Qilin hurriedly nodded and raised his eyes to look at the location of the other palace. That place was still dim and no cultivators appeared. However, after just a few breaths, 2 cultivators flew above the abyss from the palace where Hualwan was. The one in front was really the Hualwan that Xiaohua saw outside the ink cloud black forest. However, at this time, Hualwan was no longer young and had turned into a white-haired old woman. Her face was covered in wrinkles and her appearance was even more unsightly. If the fire Qilin hadn't said that this old woman was Hualwan, Xiaohua was afraid that she would be Hua Hibiscus. After Hualwan, there was another mid and late nascent soul master. Xiaohua was very familiar with this nascent soul cultivator. It was Reverend Jianghu that Xiaohua saw with his divine sense yesterday. Reverend Jianghu's gaze didn't linger on Xiaohua and the fire Qilin, but directly fell on Reverend Bluefeather. Her face clearly carried a kind of surprise, as if she didn't expect that Reverend Bluefeather would appear here. Seeing Hualwan flying over, the fire Qilin couldn't wait any longer. He was about to fly over when Reverend Bluefeather opened her eyes and looked at the abyss. She said, "Fellow Taoist Jianghu is in a good mood. Why did you come to Ardent Fire Mountain?" "Ha!" Reverend Jianghu heard and couldn't help but laugh. "Since fellow Taoist Bluefeather can come, why can't this old man come? This old man and Huapai Kong are good friends. Before the 3 elders of Ardent Fire Mountain were born, this old man often came to Ardent Fire Mountain to nag, but this old man has never heard the 3 elders of Ardent Fire Mountain mention fellow Taoist Bluefeather." Reverend Bluefeather got up and flew to the Fire Qilin side. She waved her hand and signaled the Fire Qilin to fly with her to the abyss. She said, "That's strange. This old man and Huapai Shan are good friends. Although I rarely come to Shi, if the 3 elders of Ardent Fire Mountain were to come to Meng, this old man will definitely welcome them. But this old man has never heard Huapai Shan mention fellow Taoist Jingru." While speaking, the Fire Qilin and Xiao Hua followed Reverend Bluefeather to the center of the abyss. They saw that in the depths of the abyss, where even sunlight couldn't penetrate, strands of dark red flame threads flew out from the abyss like smoke. Layers upon layers of fine fluctuations also surged out chaotically. These fluctuations and flame threads landed on the golden light protecting everyone's body, immediately creating sparks. Which fellow Taoist is this? Reverend Jiangru acted as if she didn't hear Reverend Bluefeather's question. She looked at Xiao Hua and asked curiously, "How come this old man doesn't have any impression of this person?" Xiao Hua was just about to speak when Reverend Bluefeather smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist Jingru, you don't need to care about who is beside this old man. You are one of the seniors invited by the Fire Luan, and this old man is one of the seniors invited by the Fire Qilin. Now, you only have the qualifications to ask this old man, but you don't have the qualifications to ask other fellow Taoists. If you want to know the details of this fellow Taoist, I'll have to trouble you to invite another nascent soul master who has the qualifications to speak with this fellow Taoist." Shua! While they were talking, the last hall also emitted a brilliant light. Hua Hibiscus, who looked similar to the Fire Luan, walked in with a dozen other people. Seeing that the Fire Qilin and Fire Luan had already flown into the abyss, Hua Hibiscus calmly gave a few orders and also accompanied another early nascent soul stage cultivator to fly over. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, gift it, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5093. Xiao Hua frowned as he looked at this tall cultivator. This cultivator's muscles were bulging and his body was huge. He looked like a body cultivator and not a Dao cultivator grandmaster. Moreover, this cultivator's appearance was extremely unfamiliar. Xiao Hua had never seen him before. Hee. Seeing this cultivator fly out, Reverend Bluefeather and Reverend Jing Si both laughed and said, "Blazing Inferno Mountain is really interesting. They actually invited a Kunlun sect cultivator." Although the cultivator looked rough, he was very gentle. Before he could get close, he bowed to the 2 nascent soul cultivators and said, "Junior Gu Yunzi greets the 2 seniors." Gu Yunzi of the Kunlun sect? Xiao Hua thought for a while, but he didn't have any impression of this name. Reverend Bluefeather and Reverend Jingru didn't dare to be negligent. They hurriedly raised their hands and said, "There's no need to be so polite. Quickly get up. You are now a nascent soul grandmaster. There's no need to be so courteous." "Thank you, seniors." Gu Yunzi stood up and looked at Xiao Hua. He smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist, you look very unfamiliar. May I know which sect you are from?" "Fortune Gate." Xiao Hua smiled faintly and answered, "Small sects and small sects can't compare to fellow Taoist." "Fortune Gate?" Gu Yunzi and Reverend Jingru looked at each other, then at Reverend Bluefeather. They were rather puzzled by Xiao Hua's answer. However, Taoist Bluefeather was quite satisfied with Xiao Hua's answer and said with a smile, "Just now, this old man just told fellow Taoist Jing Su that if you all want to know this fellow Taoist's identity, you still have to pass through this old man first. Otherwise, we'll have to wait for another qualified fellow Taoist to appear." "Excuse me for a moment, seniors." The Fire Luan's face carried a trace of anger. She bowed towards Adept Bluefeather and the others and said, Junior would like to speak with the Fire Qilin first. Do as you wish. Adept Bluefeather had a card up his sleeve. He laughed and said, This is Ardent Fire Mountain, and you are the true masters. After obtaining Adept Bluefeather's permission, the Fire Luan looked at the Fire Qilin and asked, Fire Qilin, that day when we were discussing, you said to delay it by 5 days. We didn't even think about it before agreeing. Why is it that today, when we want to delay it by 10 days, you won't agree? That's right. Even if 10 days isn't enough, 5 days should be enough, right? Hua Ferong also complained. As her elder brother, why can't you be more lenient on these few days? The Fire Qilin was somewhat hesitant, as if he had taken advantage of his 2 younger sisters by not agreeing to postpone. When she saw this, Hua Luan struck while the iron was hot and said, How about this? It must be very tiring for the 4 seniors to come to my blazing fire mountain from afar. Why don't we ask them to rest in Zhurong Hall for 5 days? Ahem. Without waiting for Hua Luan to finish speaking, Adept Bluefeather coughed twice and said, Hua Luan, that's where you're wrong. Fire Luan did not dare to contradict Taoist Master Bluefeather. It hurriedly smiled and said, What wrong has this junior done? Senior, please enlighten me. You didn't do anything wrong. Adept Bluefeather said indifferently. The ones at fault are us. Fear appeared on Hua Luan's face. She lowered her head and said, I don't dare. We were wrong to place our previous friendship with the 3 elders of Blazing Fire Mountain on your heads. We were wrong to believe in your integrity. Adept Bluefeather continued, I don't know what you Blazing Fire Mountain heirs discussed before. I believe that Adept Jianghu and Gu Yunzi don't know either. We only know that we are going to fight here today to help Blazing Fire Mountain find a suitable sect master. Now that the time has come, why do you want to postpone it? Do you think that we nascent soul masters are free and unfettered every day, casually finding a place to meditate? Yes, this junior knows her mistake. Hua Luan said and looked sideways at Adept Jianghu, as if asking for help. Fellow Taoist Bluefeather. Adept Jianghu had obviously discussed with Hua Luan. He said with a smile, Blazing Fire Mountain said that the fight will begin today, but they didn't set a specific time. It's still early now, so why don't we wait until the afternoon? Is that so? Adept Bluefeather turned to look at the Fire Qilin. Fire Qilin thought for a moment but was not sure. He hesitated and said, It seems possible. That's good. Adept Bluefeather heard and nodded without hesitation. Since that's the case, let's take a rest. The fight will begin in the afternoon. With that, Adept Bluefeather turned and flew back. Since Adept Bluefeather left, Adept Jianghu also turned and flew back. Only Gu Yunzi looked deeply at Xiaohua and called Hua Hibiscus to fly back. Big brother, you've changed. Before Hua Luan left, she also looked deeply at Fire Qilin and threw out such a sentence. Fire Qilin looked at Hua Luan's back and smiled bitterly. I was forced to change by you. With that, Fire Qilin said to Xiaohua, Senior, please return. We'll wait for half a day. Whatever. Xiaohua didn't care about a day and half a day. He followed Fire Qilin back and sat down cross-legged, preparing to close his eyes and meditate. Suddenly, he raised his eyebrows and looked at the abyss. A sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. Fire Qilin didn't meditate. He stood in front of the palace and looked at the other side of the abyss. Hua Luan and Hua Hibiscus didn't stay in front of the palace for long. They said a few words to Adept Jianghu and Gu Yunzi and hurriedly left. Obviously, they were waiting for the other experts. Unfortunately, half a day passed quickly. Even when Fire Qilin deliberately delayed until dusk, no nascent soul cultivators appeared in the 2 palaces. Hua Luan and Hua Hibiscus were helpless. They ordered their disciples to wait outside while they followed Adept Jianghu and Gu Yunzi to the abyss. Fire Qilin had already waited there with Adept Bluefeather and Xiaohua. Hua Hibiscus. Adept Bluefeather smiled. Who else did you invite? Since they haven't come yet, I'm afraid they won't come again, right? Hua Hibiscus hesitated for a moment before replying. They're a bit far from my ardent fire mountain. I've already sent a disciple to send a message. If they don't come now, I'm afraid something went wrong midway. Seeing that Hua Hibiscus wasn't willing to reveal who it was, Adept Bluefeather didn't ask anymore. She looked at Huoluan and said, Huoluan, what about you? Huoluan was rather straightforward. She said, I invited a senior from Tongmu City. They should have arrived long ago, but when Xiaohua heard this, he couldn't help but smile. He said, if you can wait for Qin Yi and Taoist I Ching, I think you don't have to wait any longer. Huoluan was stunned. She looked at Xiaohua and asked, Senior, what do you mean? Xiaohua shrugged. He looked at Fire Qilin and said, I didn't expect this old man to eliminate an enemy for you before even reaching Ardent Fire Mountain. It can't be? Huoluan said in disbelief. Although I invited Senior Qing Liuzi, if he couldn't come because he had something to do, he would have sent Fairy Chen. Fairy Chen and Taoist I Ching are already two nascent soul masters. Who are you? Adept Jingru's eyes flashed with a sharp light. She looked at Xiaohua and asked. Xiaohua smiled and patted his head. Jingru, don't you recognize me? As Xiaohua released his pressure, Xiaohua returned to his original appearance. You're Xiaohua? Gu Yunzi and Reverend Bluefeather might not remember Xiaohua, but Reverend Jingxi had a deep impression of Xiaohua, the thief who stole his natal magic weapon. Seeing that Xiaohua had returned to his original appearance, he had long recognized him. He cursed under his breath and was about to move. However, before he could move, Xiaohua's pressure had already risen to the late stage of nascent soul realm, not inferior to Adept Jingru's. Not only did it force Fire Qilin and the other two to tremble, it also forced Adept Jingru to not dare to act rashly. Xiaohua was only in Qi refinement realm, yet he was able to escape from Adept Jingru. His current realm was not inferior to Adept Jingru's. How could Adept Jingru dare to act without worry? Xiaohua? Adept Jingru was not the only one who was shocked. Adept Bluefeather and Gu Yunzi were also shocked. Fire Qilin, Hua Hibiscus, and Huoluan were the most shocked. You're Xiaohua? Fire Qilin asked and almost flew over to pull Xiaohua to confirm. Hua Hibiscus looked at Xiaohua's appearance that hadn't changed for hundreds of years and his cultivation that she didn't dare to look at. Her expression flickered and her gaze became blurred, as if she was thinking of the matters of the past. Huoluan's gaze was filled with jealousy, resentment, and dissatisfaction. Huoluan even said, Senior Jingru, the water element ice essence that Junior gave Senior was taken away by him. Adept Xiao, you're so calculating. Adept Bluefeather thought for a moment and said with emotion, you haven't even reached Blazing Fire Mountain, yet you've already eliminated a formidable enemy for Fire Qilin. If this old man didn't do anything, how could this old man deserve Fire Qilin's respect? Senior, are you the terrifying phoenix in the sword battle, nascent soul realm Wu Ming? Gu Yunzi was puzzled. He bowed and asked, Junior has long heard of Senior's great name. Unfortunately, I can only meet you today. It's truly Junior's honor. Xiaohua's cultivation was only in the middle or late nascent soul realm. It was really similar to Wu Ming's cultivation realm more than 600 years ago. Gu Yunzi didn't doubt him. However, Adept Jingru and Adept Bluefeather were extremely puzzled. They had seen Xiaohua before, especially Adept Jingru. When he was chasing Xiaohua, Xiaohua was really in the Foundation Establishment realm, with the strength of a Gold Core realm and the ability of a nascent soul realm to escape. They hadn't seen each other for hundreds of years, but Xiaohua was actually in the same realm as them. Then what about his strength? Adept Jingru's eyes revealed a thoughtful expression. His true essence that had been accumulating began to recede like a tide. Xiaohua didn't know Gu Yunzi and said with a smile, Fellow Taoist, you're too polite. This Xiao just did something that should be done for my Tao cultivation. I didn't expect that it would cause so much trouble. This is really beyond my expectations. No. Gu Yunzi hurriedly said, Senior, you don't know. The battle between my Tao cultivation and the sword cultivator back then was far more complicated than Senior thought. Behind the sword cultivator, there were one or several swordsmen who were far more scheming than my Tao cultivation. They arranged the troops and planned the battle for them. Moreover, the sword cultivator attached much more importance to that battle than my Dao cultivation. After the battle, several of my disciples who were scheming for the Dao cultivation did a reverse analysis, trying to find some clues from it. However, during the deduction, we were all shocked and couldn't help sweating. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to the starting point to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5094. Xiao Huan naturally knew that L.V. Ruochang of the Black Phoenix Sword Sect was the commander of the Sword Dao battle. Behind L.V. Ruochang was Jiao Xia from the Green Hill Sect. How could the human Dao cultivators be a match for the nine-tailed fox's scheme? However, he still asked with a smile, "What did you find out, Taoist Gu Yun? How could you and the other disciples who planned the battle be afraid?" Sigh. Gu Yunzi sighed and said, "We discovered during the deduction that we had already stepped into the Sword Dao cultivator's scheme since the beginning of the Sword Dao battle. Although it seemed that the swordsman's arrangements were disorderly, similar to the great swordsmanship battles recorded in the past, in reality, these arrangements, coupled with time, formed a series of seamless and flawless arrangements. Not only did they lure our disciples below the nascent soul stage into the sword tomb and kill them all, but they also lured our nascent soul stage masters into the Sky Patrol City and caught them all in one fell swoop. Of course, it was because of your appearance that not only did you disrupt the arrangement in the early stages of the Sword Dao battle, but you also destroyed the sword tomb at the last critical moment. This saved hundreds of thousands of disciples below the nascent soul stage." At this point, Gu Yunzi took a deep breath and said, "It's a pity that you disappeared after the battle of the sword tomb. If you also participated in the battle of the Sky Patrol City, our Dao cultivators would never have lost the Sky Patrol City." "How is that possible?" Perfected Jianghu said with some reluctance. Even if Xiao Hua was an early-stage nascent soul stage cultivator, he couldn't have achieved anything in the battle of the Sky Patrol City. Don't forget, even the 3 elders of the fiery Fire Mountain died in the Sky Patrol City. That mysterious weapon cultivator is really too powerful. Xiao Hua said with a smile, "Taoist Gu Yunzi, you think too highly of me. If I went, I would also die in the Sky Patrol City." "Oh no." Gu Yunzi shook his head and said, "I definitely didn't deduce wrongly." Speaking of this, Gu Yunzi hesitated for a moment, then said firmly, "Let me tell you something a little secret. The reason why I was chosen as one of the think tanks in the last Taoist Sword War is because I have a similar skill of dispatching people. More importantly, I have been practicing the deduction skill of our Kunlun sect since I was young. I have some talent in this field and have made some small achievements. And when I used the divination technique, I was shocked to discover that my Dao cultivation had a chance of winning in the battle of the Sword Dao, and the divination for this chance of winning was on Senior Nameless. It's on Senior Zhao's body." Tisk. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, "Not to mention that several hundred years have passed. If fellow Taoist were to mention it now, this Xiao would not believe it. Even if you had mentioned it that day, this Xiao would not have been able to return to the Sword Dao battle. Don't forget that I was expelled from the thunder-controlling sect. I'm only an independent cultivator, and I have no obligation to participate in the battle of the Sword Dao." Sigh. Gu Yunzi sighed for the 3rd time. He smiled bitterly and said, "This junior is extremely regretful about the Imperial Thunder Sect's decision. They can only be said to have destroyed their own backbone. This junior even feels that this might be another trap set up by the sword cultivators." By the way, hearing this, Xiao Hua was also puzzled. Although he had heard about the matter of the 3 elders of the Blazing Fire Mountain being killed by the sword cultivators, he was not clear about the details. At this time, the person in front of him was one of the people who had set up the trap for the Sword Dao battle back then, so he must be clear about many details. Therefore, he thought for a moment and said, "Fellow Taoist Gu Yunzi, can you tell this Xiao in detail how the Heavenly Patrol City was taken down by the sword cultivators and how the 3 elders of the Blazing Fire Mountain fell?" Of course. Gu Yunzi smiled and said, "Although this junior did not participate in the 2nd stage of the Sword Dao battle," cough cough. Just as Gu Yunzi said this, Taoist Blue Feather coughed twice and reminded them, "Fellow Taoists, today we are here to decide the sect master of the Blazing Fire Mountain, not to reminisce about the past. Moreover, don't you think that talking about the fall of the 3 elders of the Blazing Fire Mountain will make the disciples of the Blazing Fire Mountain sad?" "Ah, that's true." Gu Yunzi hurriedly smiled and said, "This junior knows his mistake. Senior Shao, there are many details about the Sky Patrol City. If you tell us one by one, we don't have to do our business today. In this junior's opinion, we should first help the disciples of the Blazing Fire Mountain decide the important matters in their hearts. Then this junior will explain it to senior in detail. How about it?" Xiao Huan nodded and said, "Since that's the case, let's wait until the matter of the Blazing Fire Mountain is settled before we talk about it." Hua Furong first heard that Qin Yi and Taoist Yi Qing, whom she had painstakingly invited from Tongmu City, were killed by Xiao Hua before they could reach the Blazing Fire Mountain. Then, when she saw Gu Yunzi, whom she had invited, being so respectful to Xiao Hua, her heart turned cold. She knew that there was no hope for her today. After Gu Yunzi finished speaking, she hurriedly flew to Xiao Hua, knelt down and said, "Senior Xiao." Unfortunately, before she could say anything, all her words were stuck in her throat. Her tears also fell with a schwa schwa sound. Her originally ugly face became even more unbearable. "AI." Xiao Hua sighed. He helped Hua Furong up and said, "There's no need to mention anything at this time. It won't be too late to talk about it after today." Gu Yunzi saw Hua Furong kneel down and was quite puzzled. However, after listening to Xiao Hua's words, he understood that Hua Furong and Xiao Hua were also old acquaintances. Therefore, he smiled and said, "Hua Furong, you can rest assured. Since this old man has come, I will definitely promise. Not to mention Taoist Xiao, whom this old man respects, even if it's my Kunlun sect's martial brothers, this old man will do his best to fight for the position of sect master for you." Damn it. Hua Luan heard this and cursed in her heart. She looked at Taoist Jianghu and hesitated. However, she still transmitted, "Senior, this junior has just sent a message to Hua Furong. I want to discuss with her about joining forces, but, however, she ignored you and instead knelt down in front of Xiao Hua." Taoist Jianghu sneered. "This old man will immediately send a message to Gu Yunzi. Since he said that he will do his best to fight for Hua Furong, then he and this old man will join forces to resist Xiao Hua and Taoist Blue Feather." "Many thanks, Senior." Hua Luan was overjoyed and said, "This is exactly what this junior was thinking. Today, everything will depend on Senior." "Rest assured." Taoist Jianghu said faintly, "This old man and Xiao Hua have some grudges. This time, I will definitely help you. Moreover, since this old man has promised you, I will definitely promise. You can open the restriction of the fire pond." "Okay." Hua Luan was even happier when she heard that Taoist Jianghu and Xiao Hua had some grudges. She agreed and turned her head to look at Hua Furong. Of course, Hua Luan was still looking at Taoist Jianghu from the corner of her eyes. Sure enough, Taoist Jingru's lips moved slightly. Hua Luan felt relieved and said to Hua Furong, "Big Sister Furong, now that things have come to this, what do you think we should do? Of the seniors we invited, one died before achieving success, and the other disappeared for a long time. Why don't we discuss with Big Brother Qilin again and ask him to be magnanimous this time? If it was someone else, perhaps Hua Furong would be as stubborn as Hua Luan and would struggle a few more times." However, after seeing Xiao Hua, Hua Furong seemed to recall the situation in Haoming City that year. She recalled the situation when she and Fire Qilin joined hands to protect Xiao Hua and Xue Xue. The familial affection that was forced to hide in her heart sprouted very easily. She looked at Fire Qilin, who wasn't particularly happy, and shook her head, saying, "Forget it, let's do it this way." But Hua Luan still pretended to hesitate, then gritted her teeth and said, "Okay. Since that's the case, this little sister will throw caution to the wind. We can't blame others for our bad luck. Fire Qilin, let's join hands to open the seal of the fire pond." Are we really going to open it? Now that things had come to a head, Fire Qilin was somewhat disappointed and frustrated. He asked in a low voice, This is my blazing Inferno Mountain's most valuable treasure. What? Hearing Fire Qilin's words, Huoluan sneered. Brother Qilin, you're not willing to part with it now? If you're not willing to part with it, why did you fight so fiercely with this little sister on that day? If it weren't for you, this most valuable treasure, how could it have fallen into the hands of other nascent soul seniors? Alas, in the end, it's my blazing Inferno Mountain's disciples who are disappointing. Now that all the seniors have come, what's the point of regretting? Hua Furong took a deep look at Xiao Hua and said to Fire Qilin, we only hope that the most valuable treasure of my blazing Inferno Mountain can fall into the hands of a suitable senior. After saying that, Hua Furong opened her mouth, and a broken jade pendant flew out from her mouth. The jade pendant was fiery red in color and looked sparkling and translucent. Inside, there were strands of fire that were as complicated as veins. Seeing that Hua Furong was about to make a move, Huoluan and Fire Qilin didn't hesitate and took out the jade pendants that they controlled. As the three of them pointed their fingers, 3 pieces of jade pendants flew to the center. Along with a brilliant light, they combined into a complete jade pendant. The jade pendant flashed with a faint red light in midair and produced a faint fluctuation. The fluctuation was faintly discernible and fell in all directions. Under everyone's feet, waves of tide-like sounds could be heard, as if the ceiling formation had sensed the jade pendant. Looking at the light of the jade pendant, Fire Qilin, Hua Furong, and Huoluan's eyes became serious. The 3 of them glanced at each other, and their eyes flickered. They turned their heads to look at the 3 places where the Zhurong Palace had already been turned into ruins. No one knew what the 3 of them saw, but after half a cup of tea's time, the 3 of them turned their heads back almost at the same time and looked at the jade pendant again. They seemed to be recalling something, and also seemed to be revising the secret art. After another half a cup of tea's time, Fire Qilin was the first to speak. I can already activate the secret art. Hua Furong and Huoluan didn't answer. Instead, they stared at the jade pendant. After another half a cup of tea's time, Hua Furong retracted her gaze and looked at Fire Qilin, saying, I can too. After another half a cup of tea's time, Huoluan finally said, I can too. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support it, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a gift, and Chapter 5095. Since we're all ready, let's do it, said the Fire Qilin in a melancholy tone. The earlier we do it, the earlier we can finish it, so that we won't have to worry about it later. Good. Hua Furong nodded, but the Fire Luan was a bit hesitant. She turned around and looked at the Zhurong Palace, seeming to be unwilling to give up. Seeing this, the Fire Qilin asked, Fire Luan, who else did you invite? Since they're not coming, what's the point of me telling them? The Fire Luan didn't tell the truth, and only responded blandly. The Fire Qilin didn't care, and responded casually. Next, a fiery light surged around his body, and his hands began to move incantations. As the spell was sent into the jade began to vibrate, and a small flame emerged from the surface of the jade. That flame flickered, and every time it flickered, a thunder-like sound would be generated in the air, and the tide-like sound under everyone's feet would become a bit louder. Immediately after that, Hua Furong and the Fire Luan began to move their hands as well. Their moves were obviously different from the Fire Qilin's, and the brightness and size of the flame were different as well. However, when the flame flickered, the thunder-like sound in the air and the tide-like sound in the flame also became a bit louder. When the jade had already become a sphere of flame, the Fire Qilin opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of spirit blood, then confidently changed the spell and sent streams of spirit blood into the flame. After a short while, a real Fire Qilin's blood-red shadow flashed in the spirit blood. Hua Furong and the Fire Luan were both weaker than the Fire Qilin, and their bloodlines weren't pure enough either. Therefore, the speed at which they were casting the spell began to slow down, and their hands seemed to be holding heavy objects. When the blurry blood-red shadow slowly emerged in the spirit blood, the 3 of them glanced at each other, then raised their hands and pointed at the blood-red shadow while yelling, Expel! 3 blood-red shadows flew out from the spirit blood, slowly falling towards the flame that was transformed from the jade. Boom! A thunderous boom was generated when the spirit blood touched the flame. Next, the flames suddenly expanded and transformed into a tens of zhang's large fire cauldron. This fire cauldron had 3 legs and was shaped like a square. On each side of the cauldron, all kinds of prehistorical scenes were shown. Streams of strong prehistorical power flowed in all directions like water and fell into the surrounding Zhurong Palace. A strange look appeared in Xiaohua's eyes as he pondered inwardly. This ardent fire mountain's inheritance has some origins. No wonder the 3 elders of the ardent fire mountain could establish their own sect here. No wonder even Reverend Bluefeather and Reverend Jianghu coveted the supreme treasure of ardent fire mountain. I wonder what kind of treasure it is? As soon as the fire cauldron appeared, the legs of the cauldron trembled. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, a fire pillar as thick as a child's arm fell into the abyss. Boom boom boom. 3 loud sounds were heard. The originally pitch-black abyss was ablaze with flames, and the fire pond was revealed in the flames. And at the place where the 3 pillars of fire landed, 3 huge whirlpools gradually formed. At the same time, a powerful aura gushed out of the whirlpool uncontrollably, covering the entire abyss. The fire luan, fire hibiscus, and fire qilin could no longer resist this aura. They all retreated back into the Zhurong Palace with pale faces. Of course, at this time, the Zhurong Palace was already damaged. Although there were still some restrictions that emitted faint fluctuations, they were not enough to resist this aura. Sun Shu, Zhen Qing, Sun Qian, Hua Pengfei, and the other cultivators all retreated again and again, falling behind the broken walls. The aura mixed with the flames rushed out, rushing toward Xiaohua and the others. The 4 nascent soul cultivators simultaneously emitted a faint golden light that blocked this aura. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A few breaths after the fire qilin and the others retreated into the Zhurong Palace, the entire fire cauldron let out a loud rumble and fell into the fire pond in the abyss. Every time the fire cauldron fell 10 feet, the entire abyss would violently shake once, and the thunder in the void would also rumble once. The nearby Zhurong Palace would also shake once. Moreover, as the fire cauldron approached the fire pond, the rhythm of the rumbling also began to accelerate. In the end, the fire cauldron smashed into the fire pond like an earthquake. In an instant, the fire cauldron seemed to melt and split into 3 parts, falling into the 3 whirlpools. At the same time, the 3 whirlpools swallowed each other and turned into one vortex. Then, with a rumble, the flames above the fire pond suddenly sank, and like a volcanic eruption, it rushed into the abyss and attacked Xiaohua and the others. Swish, swish. Like a flood rushing against the current, the golden light around Xiaohua and the others flickered, but their bodies were as majestic as rocks. When the flames rushed into the sky along the hole in the Zhurong Palace and condensed into a red cloud high up in the sky like the sunset, Xiaohua and the others' gazes all fell on the fire pond. Not to mention Taoist Jingru, even Xiaohua could not help but feel surprised. At the bottom of the abyss was the fire pond that Xiaohua was thinking about. However, in the fire pond, countless waves of fire were constantly rolling, and a Yazi beast soul essence that was several hundred feet in size was struggling fiercely in these waves of fire. An unyielding, angry, and unwilling aura was born from this soul essence, pushing the waves of fire in the fire pond to an extremely high level. Even Xiaohua's complexion changed a little from that aura. Not to mention the fire qilin and the other gold core practitioners, all of them had pale faces, and their bodies were somewhat limp as they struggled to stand there. Looking at this Yazi beast soul essence again, it was not complete, as if it was missing 30%. Even though it was incomplete, there were still hundreds of fire chains tightly binding it. These fire chains were as thick as a fist, and there were many strange runes engraved on them. When the fire chains fell on the Yazi beast soul essence, wisps of green smoke were immediately produced. As the green smoke grew, the runes on the fire chains would enter the soul essence, and the Yazi beast soul essence would violently tremble, as if it was in extreme pain. However, the Yazi beast soul essence's roar could not be heard, and Xiaohua and the others could not hear it. Even though it was in such pain, the Yazi beast soul essence was still struggling unyieldingly. The halos of the fire chains were produced one after another, and countless chaotic fluctuations flowed in the fire pond. It really is the Yazi beast soul essence. At this time, Taoist Bluefeather's laughter could be heard. This old man knew that the incomplete soul essence of Huatsong Mountain could not be obtained from thin air. It turns out that it was torn out from the complete Yazi beast soul essence. Damn it. When Xiaohua heard this, he suddenly understood. He was also present at the auction in Haoming City. Taoist Bluefeather wanted an 8th grade soul essence to repair a spirit artifact, and Ardent Fire Mountain happened to have an incomplete 8th grade spirit beast soul essence. Because Ardent Fire Mountain wanted the water essence Ice Pith, and Taoist Bluefeather did not have it, the two sides did not come to an agreement on the spot. Presumably, Taoist Bluefeather later found the water essence Ice Pith, and thus obtained the incomplete spirit beast soul essence from Huatsong Mountain. Of course, the incomplete spirit beast soul essence was obtained from the Yazi beast soul essence in the fire pond. Taoist Bluefeather concluded that there was another part of the soul essence in the fire pond, and thus, he schemed against Ardent Fire Mountain. Xiaohua did not care that Taoist Bluefeather schemed against Ardent Fire Mountain, but when he saw the Yazi beast soul essence, Xiaohua easily thought of the little white dragon. Therefore, Xiaohua did not want this unyielding and struggling Yazi beast soul essence to fall into a desperate situation and be refined into a spirit artifact's artifact soul. Therefore, Xiaohua moved and flew towards the abyss of the fire pond. Although Xiaohua moved, he was still a step too late. Just as Taoist Bluefeather was laughing, Gu Yunzi had already opened his mouth and spat out a fire bead to protect his body. He was the first to rush towards the fire pond. Gu Yunzi indeed did not let Huafarong down. He wanted to use all his strength to obtain this soul essence. Taoist Jianghu was not slow either. He opened his mouth, and another pill furnace flashed with flames and flew out, landing at Taoist Jianghu's feet. The pill furnace flashed with flames and protected Taoist Jianghu. Taoist Jianghu's eyes were filled with resentment as he looked at Xiaohua. He urged his body to rush towards the fire pond after Gu Yunzi. On the contrary, Taoist Bluefeather, because he was too pleased with himself, actually fell behind Xiaohua. When he slapped the top of his head, a clear light carrying a lantern-like spirit artifact surged out. Xiaohua had already flown more than 10 zhang away. However, Taoist Bluefeather's spirit artifact was indeed extraordinary. As soon as the lantern appeared, a blazing aura comparable to the fire pond surged out. This aura was similar to the aura of the Yazi, but it was also a bit sharper. What was special was that the flame on the lantern gave birth to an illusionary image that rippled in all directions like waves. Within the illusionary image, thousands upon thousands of restraining forces came pressing down like layers of mountains. In an instant, the entire space was filled up. Oh! Xiaohua was originally below Taoist Bluefeather. When the suppressive power descended, it enveloped Xiaohua's body. Xiaohua slightly raised his head to look at Taoist Bluefeather. Ha! Taoist Bluefeather laughed loudly and said, "Taoist Xiao, please don't misunderstand, N." Xiaohua replied with a smile. However, just as his smile appeared, Taoist Bluefeather's face instantly changed and he shouted, "Kill!" As the word "kill" came out of his mouth, the spirit artifact in Taoist Bluefeather's hand immediately solidified. Dozens of phantoms appeared out of thin air and fell toward Xiaohua. The suppressive power that originally enveloped Xiaohua suddenly became several times stronger. The space around Xiaohua was like a mountain rock that bound Xiaohua. At the same time, Taoist Calm Deliberation, who was below Xiaohua, raised his head with a sinister smile. He raised his hand and patted his head. Boom! A light sound rang out and a 2-foot-long nascent soul rushed out, surrounded by flames. That nascent soul did not have time to stand still in midair. He raised his hand and waved. A small sword that was only a few inches long transformed into a stream of light and soared into the sky. In the blink of an eye, it pierced Xiaohua's back. Although this small sword was small, its sword intent was like lightning. Wherever the small sword passed, layers of cracks appeared in the void. A thumb-sized vortex had already appeared where Xiaohua's back was imprisoned by the spirit artifact. If nothing unexpected happened, within a few breaths of time, Xiaohua, who was being attacked by two nascent soul masters, would be pierced through from the back by this small sword. Sigh. A light sigh sounded like the weeping of a ghost. It carried endless helplessness and endless desolation. It was like a disappointment towards the human heart and dissatisfaction towards human nature. This light sigh fell into the hearts of Taoist Calm Deliberation and Taoist Blue Feather. Both of them were inexplicably frightened at the same time. Following this light sigh, Xiaohua's figure, who was originally enveloped by the spirit artifact's true essence, suddenly faded like an ink painting and disappeared in the blink of an eye. OIPS. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support it. Cast a monthly vote, cast a recommendation vote, collect a collection, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5096. This. Taoist Blue Feather was shocked and hurriedly looked at the fire qilin in front of Zhurong Hall because the voice was drifting towards that direction. Impossible! Taoist Master Blue Feather roared in his heart. Xiaohua's figure appeared like a ghost in front of the fire qilin. Xiaohua's hand pointed at Yuanya, who was at the gold core realm, and he said, "Go, settle this karma for Master." "Yes." Yuanya replied, and his aura surged. With a crackling sound, the aura of the Yazi soul essence shattered inch by inch under Yuanya's dragon-like aura. Yuanya raised his hand and the demon spear appeared. He transformed into a demon god and rushed into the fiery abyss. Damn it! Although Taoist Blue Feather couldn't feel Yuanya's strength for the time being and wasn't clear about Xiaohua's strength, how could a cultivator who could easily escape from his spirit weapon be easy to deal with? Moreover, Yuanya actually broke through the space sealed by the spirit weapon with a snap of his fingers and rushed straight towards him with the devil spear in his hand. How could he not know Yuanya's strength? Taoist Blue Feather didn't think too much and roared loudly, "Fellow Taoist Jianghu, let's kill this guy first." Taoist Jianghu's nascent soul urged the spirit sword to fly out. She was also slightly stunned and raised her sharp voice to reply. Raising the spirit sword, she pounced towards Yuanya like a small snake. Looking at the two Grandmaster-level experts attacking Yuanya together, Xiaohua slightly shook his head. Taoist Blue Feather and Taoist Jianghu had already started to discuss through voice transmission after hearing that Xiaohua killed Qin Yi. One had a feud with Xiaohua and the other felt that Xiaohua might not be able to obtain the Ardent Fire Mountain's treasure as she wished. Therefore, the two nascent souls from Meng Kingdom hit it off and planned to kill Xiaohua first before making any plans. Unfortunately, what they didn't know was that every word they said had fallen into Xiaohua's ears. Xiaohua was just beating them at their own game to see if the two of them would really attack. While Xiaohua was shaking his head, Xiaohua suddenly knitted his eyebrows, raised his eyes and looked at the broken roof of Zhurong Palace. In that area, a fiery red cloud had covered the clear sky. At this time, a fishnet-like sword light suddenly appeared above the clouds. The sword light passed through the flames and turned into two unparalleled huge swords, making a clang-clang sound and pierced towards the abyss fire pond. Sword Cultivator? Second-grade sword transformation. Fire Luan actually invited a sword cultivator? Xiaohua looked at Fire Luan opposite him. Sure enough, when Hua Luan heard the sword cry, her face was filled with ecstasy. Needless to say, this sword cultivator was a helper that Hua Luan had invited. Damn it. Seeing this, the fire qilin beside Xiaohua cursed in a low voice. Fire Luan. She actually asked a sword cultivator for help. The fire qilin would not have been so angry if the Fire Luan had invited any sect from the three kingdoms. However, the Fire Luan had invited a sword cultivator from the Huan Kingdom, the sword cultivator who had killed the three elders of the blazing fire mountain in front of Sky Patrol City. This was unacceptable. Roar. Seeing the great sword chopping down, how could Adept Blue Feather dare to attack Yuanya again? He let out an angry roar. Like a spirit artifact, his figure turned into a ray of light that met the giant's sword. As for Yuanya, a cold smile appeared on his face. He casually raised his bone spear and stabbed it towards the giant's sword. King. With a loud sound, the bone spear pierced through the void and pierced the giant's sword. With the sound of the sword ringing, the giant sword shattered and a yellow-faced sword cultivator appeared from the fragments of sword light. The sword cultivator's face was filled with shock as he looked at Yuan Ye in disbelief. His left arm, which had not yet withdrawn from the sword shape, was already covering his abdomen. A glowing blood was slowly flowing out from there. At the same time, another loud boom rang out. The other great sword that was thrusting towards Taoist Bluefeather was also sent flying by the spirit artifact. As the sword light scattered, a skinny sword cultivator was revealed in a sorry state. The two sword cultivators did not expect that they would be defeated in a single blow the moment they appeared. They looked at Taoist Bluefeather again. Although he had repelled the sword cultivator who had launched a sneak attack, the spirit artifact under his control flickered extremely. A layer of deathly white color appeared on his face. Roar! When the spirit artifact was damaged, Yazi's soul essence in the depths of the fire pond immediately sensed it. The soul essence roared and set off another wave of fire. As the wave of fire soared into the sky, the rapidly descending Gu Yunzi had no choice but to dodge to the side and temporarily avoid the sharp edge. As for Yuan Ye, his figure merely paused for a moment. After pondering for a moment, he thrust his spear at the injured sword cultivator. Yuan Ye was not as benevolent as Xiaohua. If the sword cultivator dared to launch a sneak attack on him, he would definitely take the sword cultivator's life. King King. When the two sword cultivators saw that Yuan Ye's momentum was unparalleled, they were shocked and hurriedly opened their mouths to let out a sharp cry. Yuan Ye was somewhat puzzled, but after a few breaths, he suddenly raised his head and saw that under the cloud of fire, a golden light had struck down from the sky. It was even faster than lightning. Moreover, this golden light was extremely arrogant. Not only did it attack Yuan Ye, it also covered the nascent souls of Taoist Bluefeather and Taoist Jianghu. Only Gu Yunzi flew low and was not affected. Seeing the golden light, Yuan Ye was somewhat stunned. However, he knew that this golden light was powerful and did not dare to be negligent. He raised his spear and blocked the golden light. Shua! With a soft sound, the golden light attacking Yuan Ye was restrained in front of the bone spear. Even someone as strong as Yuan Ye's arm trembled slightly. He hurriedly looked at his bone spear. Fortunately, although there was a faint mark on the bone spear, the demonic aura around the mark had already formed like silk and began to slowly repair it. Yuan Ye was in such a state, but Taoist Bluefeather and Taoist Jianghu were not so relaxed. Taoist Bluefeather had just blocked the attack of the giant sword. Before the backlash of the spirit weapon could dissipate from his body, the murderous golden light had already landed. Pooh! With a soft sound, the golden light split all the phantoms of the spirit weapon into a neat crack. Under the crack, the golden light struck the top of Taoist Bluefeather's head. Although Taoist Bluefeather tried his best to dodge, the golden light was too sharp. It easily tore through Taoist Bluefeather's protective golden light and easily chopped off the left half of his arm. Taoist Bluefeather was in great pain and hurriedly urged his broken body to dodge to the side of the abyss. Just as Taoist Bluefeather urged his body to move, another sharp scream came from below him. Taoist Bluefeather did not need to look to know that this was Taoist Jianghu's nascent soul being split apart by the golden light. Sure enough, where the golden light landed, Taoist Jianghu's flying sword was neatly split in half. Her nascent soul was also split in half without any resistance. Taoist Soaring Dragon. Without waiting for the golden light to disappear, Taoist Bluefeather roared in a low voice. Why are you here? At the place where the golden light dissipated, Taoist Soaring Dragon's bony figure slowly revealed himself. Taoist Bluefeather looked at Taoist Soaring Dragon with fear in his eyes. Back then, under Sky Patrol City, even Taoist Yuan Qing of the Tai Ching sect, who had stepped into the late nascent soul stage, was defeated by Taoist Soaring Dragon. How could the current Taoist Bluefeather be Taoist Soaring Dragon's opponent? This was Xiaohua's first time seeing Taoist Soaring Dragon. He looked at Taoist Soaring Dragon's withered yellow face with interest and the ruthlessness flashing in his scarlet yellow eyes. He did not make a move and seemed to be thinking about something. However, this was not the end of it. Just as Taoist Soaring Dragon's figure appeared, A green light from all directions shrouded him like a clear cloud. Wherever the green light passed, whether it was the fire of the fire pond or the Yazi's aura, they were all annihilated. Luo, fallen flower fairy. Taoist Bluefeather's face was ashen as he roared. Facing the fierce weapon cultivator who could kill the 3 elders of the blazing fire mountain 700 years ago, Taoist Bluefeather could already see the shadow of death. When the green light appeared, there was no mercy at all. Ka! A clear sound like the sound of nature was emitted from the green light. A green cloud flashing with golden light fell from the green light. This golden light was several times bigger than the one in Sky Patrol City. It completely enveloped the entire abyss and brazenly fell. The golden light was even more powerful than Taoist's soaring dragons. As soon as it appeared, it immediately fell on top of Taoist Bluefeather's head. Taoist Bluefeather only had time to activate his spirit weapon to resist, but the golden light had already penetrated his spirit weapon. Shwa! Wherever the golden light passed, the fire of the spirit weapon was extinguished like a candle in the wind. An extremely dim Yazi's soul essence broke free from the golden light. It turned into a stream of light and fell into the void, instantly falling back into the fire pond. After the soul essence, the golden light brushed past Taoist Bluefeather's body. It was even more powerful than when it killed the 3 elders of the blazing fire mountain. Taoist Bluefeather's nascent soul did not even escape. It was annihilated along with his body. Where do you think you're going? In the distance, Taoist soaring dragon saw the remnant soul of the spirit weapon fall into the fire pond and coldly said. He turned into a golden light and rushed towards the Yazi's soul essence under the fire chain. Naturally, Yuanya was also under Luo Hua Fairy's golden light. He did not dare to be negligent. He waved his bone spear and the soaring devil flame turned into a devil head to block the golden light. Although the golden light brushed deeply into the devil flame, it was gradually refined by the devil flame. After all, Yuanya, who was close to the 8th grade of elemental energy, was not someone Luo Hua Fairy could compare with. Although Luo Hua Fairy's light was blocked by Yuanya's devil spear, the golden light in other places still fell. Taoist Jianghu, who had lost his nascent soul, was even more vulnerable. He only activated his body to escape for 1,000 feet before the golden light caught up with him. When his body was annihilated, he did not even have time to scream. Gu Yunzi, who was originally hiding from the fierce aura of the Yazi's soul essence, had already sensed that something was wrong when the sword cultivator appeared. He activated his body and quietly went to the side of Zhurong Palace. When Taoist soaring dragon killed Taoist Jingyu's nascent soul, Luo Hua Fairy killed Taoist Jingyu and Taoist Bluefeather, Gu Yunzi could not help but cry out, "Save me!" Alas! Xiao Hua sighed again. Weapon cultivators, in the end, they are not righteous. At this time, you don't even have any humanity left. What kind of cultivators are you? Along with this sigh, a big golden hand stretched out from the top of the abyss and covered Gu Yunzi. Luo Hua Fairy's golden light could kill the 3 elders of the blazing fire mountain, but when it landed on this big hand, it could only cut off 30% of the golden light of the big hand. It could not destroy the big hand. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward, and Chapter 5097. Yuanya, go and capture Immortal Tingjiao. This Luo Hua Fairy. Leave her to your 8th martial uncle. Xiao Hua instructed and placed Gu Yunzi beside him. Haha. As Xiao Hua took out the Kunlun mirror, the celestial being laughed and flew out of the light beam. He looked at the green light and shouted, "She is my prey. Sooner or later she will fly to me. You have been free and unfettered in the mortal world for so many years. You must be tired. Come." As he spoke, the celestial being waved his hand and the heavenly dipper rushed up to the sky. The heavenly dipper released a green light that was exactly the same as the green light in all directions. It covered the green light around Fairy Luo Hua, and her figure was revealed. Fairy Luo Hua was even more shocked than Immortal Tingjiao. She looked at the heavenly dipper above her head, and there was no surprise in her eyes. There was only coldness and ruthlessness. Except for ruthlessness, There was only ruthlessness. Ka. The heavenly dipper trembled slightly, and a golden light fell and instantly went through Fairy Luo Hua's delicate body. Unlike ordinary cultivators, Fairy Luo Hua didn't die. Instead, her whole body trembled and made a clear boom. Then, a faint square outline appeared in her body. Whoosh! The celestial being's figure flashed, and he had already passed through the green light and landed beside Fairy Luo Hua. Then, he stretched out his hands, and a pair of big hand shadows fell on the square outline. Then, with a thunderous sound, the void for thousands of feet to the left was trembling. As the light and shadow intertwined, the outline of the heavenly dipper was taken out by the celestial being from Fairy Luo Hua's body. After losing the heavenly dipper, Fairy Luo Hua's face blushed, and a faint trace of vitality appeared in her eyes. However, this vitality was still very weak. Fairy Luo Hua only had time to say, "Thank you," and her weak body had already turned into powder and scattered with the wind. After Fairy Luo Hua died, the heavenly dipper immediately produced a strong suction force. The surface of the shadow rushed into the heavenly dipper, and a strong aura that could destroy the void came out of the heavenly dipper, and the nearby broken wall of Zhurong Palace was lifted again. Fellow cultivator Luo Hua. Immortal Teng Jiao was naturally not Yuan Ye's opponent. Just when Fairy Luo Hua turned into ashes, he was also captured by Yuan Ye. His ruthless eyes he looked miserable, and he growled and turned to Yuan Ye and said, "Kill me quickly. I really can't resist the corrosion of this ancient era magic. I really can't resist the erosion of this ancient era." After he finished speaking, his eyes opened, he, Teng, Tian's heaven, and he Teng, Teng, and Teng Jiao. And he, Master Teng. The heaven looked at the heavenly dipper and raised his right hand. Ka. A few times, the shadow of a large hand broke through Immortal Teng Jiao's defense, and forcibly took the other half of the Teng Jiao shears out of Immortal Teng Jiao's body. After the Teng Jiao shears were taken out, Immortal Teng Jiao's face turned red. Although his withered body didn't turn into ashes, it was still very thin, without any flesh or blood. Swoosh! Xiaohua waved his hand, and the other half of the Teng Jiao shears turned into a golden light and landed beside Immortal Teng Jiao. Immortal Teng Jiao's eyes showed an indescribable bitterness, and he said in a low voice, This Teng Jiao shears is indeed in the hands of a Dao cultivator. I have been looking for it for over 10,000 years. Unfortunately, without waiting for him to finish speaking, a deathly gray color quickly spread on his cheeks. Immortal Teng Jiao almost didn't have the strength to say another word. He only looked at the heaven, let go of his hand, and sent out his half of the Teng Jiao shears, combining it with the other half. In an extremely resplendent golden light, 2 golden flood dragons were entangled together. He opened his mouth and spat out 2 words, "Thank you." As for whether he was thanking the heaven for restoring the Teng Jiao shears or thanking the heaven for cutting off his unbearable life as a tool cultivator, perhaps only Immortal Teng Jiao himself would know. Following the last 2 words of his life, Immortal Teng Jiao's body floated into the fire pond like a fallen leaf, disappearing in a moment. The heaven lowered his head to take a look, and sighed. With a wave of his hand, he put away the heavenly dipper and said loudly, "Fellow Taoist, quickly put I into the Kunlun immortal realm. I want to refine the heavenly dipper." "No problem," said Xiaohua as he waved the Kunlun mirror and put away the heaven and heavenly dipper. Standing beside Xiaohua was none other than Gu Yunzi of Kunlun sect. He did not know that the treasure in Xiaohua's hand was the Kunlun mirror, but when he heard the heaven's words, his face was filled with astonishment. His eyes rested on the Kunlun mirror, unwilling to move away for a long time. Xiaohua naturally noticed Gu Yunzi's expression, but he did not mind it. He raised his hand and performed a grabbing motion, and the 2 flood dragons fell into his hand, transforming into the Teng Jiao shears again. Xiaohua gave it a brief glance, and his heart was filled with emotions. He waved his hand and put the Teng Jiao shears into his space, asking Reverend Yun to refine it for him. At the moment, Reverend Thunder was busy refining the 5 elements heavenly staff, so he did not have the time to help Xiaohua. "Senior, Please spare our lives. Please spare our lives. Seeing Fairy Luo Hua and Reverend Ting Jiao fall one after another, and their two ancient magical items being taken away by Xiao Hua, the two sword cultivators of the second tier of illusory sword hurriedly dropped to their knees and begged for their lives. Xiao Hua looked at the two and said to Yunya, this is your own karma. You decide for yourself. Yunya looked at the sword cultivator who had lost half of his life and said coldly, Scram, yes. Many thanks, Senior, many thanks, Senior. The two sword cultivators did not even reveal their names. They hurriedly stood up respectfully, and with one supporting the other, they turned into sword lights and hurriedly left. Now that the sword cultivators had left, Reverend Blue Feather and Reverend Jing Si had fallen, only Xiao Hua and Gu Yunzi remained. Gu Yunzi was not a fool. He hurriedly bowed and said, Since Senior interfered in the matters of Ardent Fire Mountain, how could Junior dare to interfere? Please forgive Junior's disrespect. Xiao Hua nodded. Behind him, Fire Qilin and all the other disciples of Ardent Fire Mountain knelt down and kowtowed. Senior Xiao, thank you for taking revenge for my Ardent Fire Mountain. As Fire Qilin's voice fell, Fire Hibiscus, Fire Luan and all the other disciples of Ardent Fire Mountain also knelt down on the ground, kowtowing with tears streaming down their faces. It was not that they did not think of taking revenge, but they did not have the strength. They did not even understand the matters of Ardent Fire Mountain, so how could they take revenge? They had never thought that Fairy Luo Hua, who had ambushed the three elders of Ardent Fire Mountain, would fall in Ardent Fire Mountain and be killed in front of the disciples of Ardent Fire Mountain. Everyone, get up. Xiao Hua waved his hand and helped everyone up. He said indifferently, this old man had some karma with the three elders of Ardent Fire Mountain, and now, it can be considered settled. Saying this, he looked down into the abyss and said, Since this old man helped Fire Qilin seize the position of Sect Master, this supreme treasure of Ardent Fire Mountain should be mine? Fire Qilin, Fire Hibiscus, and Fire Luan did not dare to be negligent. They hurriedly said in unison, Yes, this supreme treasure is Senior's. That's good. As Xiao Hua spoke, he raised his hand and reached towards the fire pond in the abyss. A thunderous big hand was formed and fell into the fire pond. The big hand closed and caught the hundreds of fire chains. Open! Xiao Hua roared and retracted his big hand. The entire Zhu Rong Palace hall shook. Amidst the rumbling sounds of mountains collapsing and earth splitting, the fire chains were torn apart. The Yazi beast's soul essence that had been imprisoned for an unknown number of years whizzed out of the fire pond and rushed into the sky. Soon after, it roared a few times and flew to an unknown place amidst the flickering flames. All the disciples of Ardent Fire Mountain were dumbfounded. They had never thought that Xiao Hua would release the soul essence that was regarded as a supreme treasure by Ardent Fire Mountain. Xiao Hua retracted his divine ability and looked at Fire Qilin. Fire Qilin, this old man has helped you obtain the position of Sect Master of Ardent Fire Mountain. You should take care of yourself. Oh, right, Hua Pengfei colluded with Meng Nation's Immortal Music Sect. That Taoist Blue Feather is actually not related to the three elders of Ardent Fire Mountain. Yes, this junior knows his mistake. Hearing this, Hua Pengfei's face turned pale. He then took 2 steps forward and said, This junior is too infatuated with power. This junior deserves death. Saying this, Hua Pengfei turned his hand and was about to strike his own head. Wait, who would have thought that at this moment, Fire Qilin would shout and extend his hand to block Hua Pengfei's hand? Sect Master Qilin? Hua Pengfei smiled bitterly and said, Could it be that you want to do it yourself? Fire Qilin ignored Hua Pengfei and looked at Xiao Hua. Senior, Ardent Fire Mountain without great-grandfather is no longer Ardent Fire Mountain. Without the supreme treasure, Ardent Fire Mountain will no longer be Ardent Fire Mountain. Ardent Fire Mountain that has lost its family is no longer Ardent Fire Mountain in this junior's heart. With such a Ardent Fire Mountain, even if this junior blocks the Sect Master, so what? Moreover, this junior doesn't like to be a Sect Master. Senior. Without waiting for Fire Qilin to finish speaking, Hua Hibiscus hurriedly flew over and knelt down. This junior has a thought from Big Brother Qilin. Please, please accept us as your disciple. We wish to leave Ardent Fire Mountain. Yes. Fire Qilin similarly knelt down and said, this junior knows that his cultivation is shallow and doesn't dare to become senior's disciple. Please accept this junior as your disciple. Xiaohua had some understanding of Fire Qilin and Hua Hibiscus. Seeing the two acting like this, he nodded and said, since that's the case, you all can follow this old man. Saying this, Xiaohua waved his big sleeve and took Fire Qilin, Hua Hibiscus, and Zhen Qing. His figure moved and rushed out of the abyss. Yuan Ya and Gu Yunzi didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly followed. The three of them disappeared in a moment. After everyone left, only the disciples of Ardent Fire Mountain remained in Zhurong Palace Hall. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. After half a cup of tea's time, Huoluan said with waning interest, forget it. Since that's the case, my Ardent Fire Mountain will disperse. No! Hua Pengfei hurriedly shouted, although the two great-granduncles have left, you are still here. Although my Ardent Fire Mountain has declined, it is still a sect. This is the painstaking effort of the three great ancestors. We can't just abandon it like this. I am willing to support great-granduncles as the sect master of my Ardent Fire Mountain. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote, vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. I am really grateful for everyone's support. I will try my best to add one more chapter. This will be the end of the story of Ardent Fire Mountain. Chapter 5098. We're willing too. The other disciples of Blazing Fire Mountain cheered as well. Blazing Fire Mountain can't be without a sect master. Since Granduncle is the only son who is qualified to be the sect master, he can sit on the sect master's seat today. Huoluan ascended to the position of Blazing Fire Mountain's sect master as she wished. She was ready to reorganize the Blazing Fire Mountain. Xiaohua led a group of cultivators and rushed into the sky. With a sweep of his divine sense, he already knew that the Ardent Fire Mountain's forbidden array had been destroyed by the sword cultivator. Therefore, Xiaohua's figure flashed and flew out of the Ardent Fire Mountain, landing on a foothill several hundred li away. After putting everyone down, Yuan Ya and Gu Yunzi flew over. As soon as Gu Yunzi landed, he immediately said respectfully, Senior Xiao, since you have a relationship with Blazing Fire Mountain, why did you hand over Blazing Fire Mountain to a disciple who colluded with sword cultivators? In the future, will Blazing Fire Mountain be a pawn of sword cultivators or a sect of Dao cultivators? Xiaohua smiled and asked, Gu Yunzi, you were also invited by Huoluan. It seems that you shouldn't be the one to say this. It should be Hua Qilin or Hua Hibiscus. No wonder when I asked Huoluan if she invited other cultivators a few days ago, she kept hemming and hawing. If I knew she invited sword cultivators, I would definitely leave in a huff. Gu Yunzi shook his head and said, even if I owe the three elders of Blazing Fire Mountain a favor, I have the right to do this in the face of the sword cultivator who killed the three elders. I'm sure the three elders won't blame me if they know. Forget it. Xiaohua no longer saw the difference between sword cultivators and Dao cultivators. He smiled and said, Blazing Fire Mountain only has three legitimate sons. Since Hua Qilin and Hua Hibiscus are unwilling to stay in Blazing Fire Mountain, Huoluan will naturally be in charge of Blazing Fire Mountain. This is the will of heaven and the will of the people. As for where Blazing Fire Mountain will go in the future, it's their own business. It has nothing to do with you, me, or the entire Dao cultivators. Moreover, the sword cultivators have already taken over Sky Patrol City. It's said that many swordsmen have gone to the Cultivation 3 kingdoms to train. My Dao cultivators have also gone to the Hing Kingdom to train. Slowly, sword cultivators and Dao cultivators will merge. It doesn't matter who is the chess piece of who. Sigh. Gu Yunzi naturally had foresight. By the time Xiaohua finished speaking, he had already understood. He could not help but sigh. Senior, you're right. The Great War of Dao and Sword back then was definitely the opening of a new era. We are now in the midst of an era of change. Oh, that's right. Hearing Gu Yunzi mention the changes in the era, Xiaohua immediately thought of the method of selecting spiritual roots and the cultivation method of spiritual roots. He hurriedly asked, "Now that the spiritual energy of heaven and earth has changed greatly, how will the Kunlun sect deal with it?" This. Gu Yunzi hesitated for a moment. He looked at Zhen Qing and the others and said embarrassedly, "Senior, I have something to tell you in private." Xiaohua nodded. He turned to Zhen Qing and said, "Martial uncle, the matter of the ardent fire mountain has ended. You can now return to the Zhenlei Hall and report this matter to Xing Yunzi. I still have some matters to attend to, so I won't be sending Martial uncle back to the Imperial Thunder Sect." Taoist Master Xiao. Hearing Xiaohua still calling him Martial uncle in front of Gu Yunzi, Zhen Qing felt warm in his heart. However, when he heard that Xiaohua was not returning to the Imperial Thunder Sect, he hurriedly asked, You're not returning to the Imperial Thunder Sect?" Hee. Xiaohua laughed and said, "The Imperial Thunder Sect is Martial Uncle's Imperial Thunder Sect, not mine. My return to the Imperial Thunder Sect is not legitimate, so why would I find trouble for no reason?" Sun Shu hurriedly said, "Senior brother, didn't you say earlier? Senior brother has just left the Sky Thunder Peak, and Sect Master Qianlazi has already issued a summoning order. Qianlazi has already fallen, so there's no need to mention this matter again." Before Sun Shu could finish speaking, Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "The karma between me and the Imperial Thunder Sect has already been settled, so there's no need to complicate matters. Of course, Martial Uncle is still Martial Uncle, and Junior Sister is still Junior Sister. In this vast world, if anyone dares to bully my Martial Uncle and Junior Sister, my fortune gate will definitely come out in full force." "All right." Sun Shu's expression was a little gloomy. He knew that Xiaohua could no longer return to the Imperial Thunder Sect, so he said in a low voice, "Senior brother, if you have time, come to the Imperial Thunder Sect to visit your old friends." Zhen Qing hurriedly gave Sun Shu a look, obviously telling Sun Shu to mention the myriad lightning valley so that Xiaohua could reminisce about old times. However, Sun Shu pretended not to see it. She understood Xiaohua very well, not inferior to Fairy Hong Xia and Xue Xue. She knew that Xiaohua was a nostalgic person, and he would definitely return to visit the myriad Lightning Valley's disciples. Of course, with Xiaohua's current strength, even if he went other than the myriad Lightning Valley's disciples, the other Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples would definitely not know. She had no reason to come here in advance, as if she was using family ties to coerce Xiaohua. Feeling helpless, Zhen Qing could only bow and say, "In that case, I will take my leave." After saying that, Zhen Yu knelt on the ground and kowtowed, "Taoist Xiao, this little one will also take his leave. This little one wishes Taoist Xiao good fortune and good health. And quickly go." Xiaohua smiled and helped this devout believer up. He said, "Cultivate well and save the world. Yes, this little one will remember Taoist Zhao's teachings in this life." Zhen Yu stood up and said, while releasing the flying boat. He jumped onto the flying boat first and said to Zhen Qing and the rest, "Seniors, please board the boat." Zhen Qing, Sun Qian and Sun Shu boarded the flying boat and reluctantly waved goodbye to Xiaohua. When the flying boat was activated, it disappeared in a moment. Xiaohua looked at the fire Qilin and Huofarong and said to Yuanya, "These two children's aptitude is not bad. Are you willing to accept them as your disciples?" "Master," Yuanya replied without any trace of politeness, "Disciples' cultivation technique is not suitable for them. Disciple does not want to accept them." "All right." Xiaohua pondered for a moment, then said to the fire Qilin and Huofarong, "Don't be disappointed. With my disciple's strength, accepting you as his disciples is indeed not appropriate. Please wait a moment." Saying that, Xiaohua activated the Kunlun mirror and released Xiongyi. Xiongyi didn't have time to take a closer look. He quickly bowed and said, "Greetings, Master." Xiaohua looked at the fire Qilin and Huofarong and said, "These two are Master's old acquaintances. Their temperament is not bad. Help Master find a suitable master for them in the Fortune Gate, regardless of whether they are inner or outer disciples." "Yes, disciple understands." Xiongyi agreed without hesitation when he heard that he didn't need to accept any disciples. Xiongyi looked around and said with a smile, Master, is this the Yilin mainland? Or the Dawn Rain mainland? This is already the Dawn Rain mainland. Xiaohua smiled and said, Bring them back first and discuss with Li Xiong. Yes, disciple understands. Xiaohua didn't say much, but Xiongyi understood Xiaohua's meaning and bowed respectfully. Fire Qilin Huofeng. Xiaohua looked at the two and said solemnly, From now on, you are no longer ardent Fire Mountain's disciples. Since you have entered my fortune gate, you must abide by my fortune gate's rules. Don't create trouble. Yes, disciple understands. Seeing that another late nascent soul cultivator had appeared, the Fire Qilin and Huofeng didn't dare to breathe loudly. Hearing Xiaohua's words, they bowed respectfully. After Xiaohua activated the Kunlun mirror and released the three people, he looked around and said, Gu Yunzi, if you have something to say it here. Yes, senior. Gu Yunzi naturally wouldn't let Yuanya leave. He hurriedly looked at the Kunlun mirror in Xiaohua's hand and asked in a low voice, Junior wants to ask senior, is the magic treasure in your hand, the Kunlun mirror? Xiaohua didn't hide anything and nodded. This magic treasure is indeed the Kunlun mirror. Hiss. Gu Yunzi was already certain, but when he heard Xiaohua admit it himself, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. He said somewhat enviously, Senior, you're really lucky. This Kunlun mirror is an ancient artifact. As far as this junior knows, the Kunlun mirror was the most precious treasure of our Kunlun sect in ancient times. Only those who can control the Kunlun mirror are qualified to be the sect leader of our Kunlun sect. Every generation of Kunlun sect leader relies on the Kunlun mirror to have the ability to penetrate the heavens and penetrate the earth. Xiaohua's face revealed an intriguing smile and said, Gu Yunzi, are you reminding this old man to return this Kunlun mirror, intact? I wouldn't dare. Gu Yunzi hurriedly smiled and said, Junior definitely didn't mean that. Junior has already made it clear that the Kunlun mirror is an ancient magic treasure with incomparable power. Those who don't have great luck will never be able to obtain it. Since Senior has already obtained it, it means that in this vast world, only Senior is qualified to control it. Junior can only be envious and dare not be jealous. Secondly, Senior's current ability is unrivaled in the world. Even if my Kunlun sect uses all its power, we still can't defeat Senior. What right does my Kunlun sect have to ask Senior? Xiaohua nodded and said with a smile, Kunlun sect is indeed a great Taoist sect with inheritance. Your bearing is extraordinary. If it were other sects, I'm afraid they would have already suppressed me with righteousness. Gu Yunzi smiled and said, Senior, you think too highly of my Kunlun sect. Since my Kunlun sect is established in the Xiaoyu continent, it's inevitable that we won't be secular. If Senior's strength is not enough, who knows what my Kunlun sect's masters will do? After all, this is the Kunlun mirror. Others don't know this treasure, but my Kunlun sect knows it clearly. Hearing Gu Yunzi being so honest, Xiaohua felt a little strange and said with a smile, You stayed here just for these words? Of course not. Gu Yunzi shook his head and said, Junior stayed here because I have a few ideas. You actually have a few ideas? Xiaohua nodded and took out a jade table, spiritual fruits and other things. He said, Sit down, I'm all ears. Senior, please don't be so polite. Gu Yunzi hurriedly waved his hand. However, Xiaohua interrupted him and said, This spiritual fruit can make up for one's lifespan. Are you sure you don't want to use it? If that's the case, Junior will disturb you. Hearing this, Gu Yunzi immediately sat down in front of the jade table, took a peach of immortality, and answered with a smile. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and reward it. Thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5099. After Gu Yunzi ate a peach of immortality, he said, Actually, Junior's first thought is to invite Senior to join my Kunlun sect. After all, Senior took the Kunlun mirror, which means that you are fated with my Kunlun sect. But then I thought about it, with Senior's strength, how would my sect master deal with it? Moreover, Senior's strength is indeed an anomaly in my Xiaoyu continent. This matter is related to the sect's plan. Junior can't decide without permission. I have to return to the sect master and ask for his opinion. Xiaohua didn't know whether to agree or not, so he asked, "What's the second thought?" "The second thought is," Gu Yunzi said with a smile, "Junior wants to know where Senior got the Kunlun mirror. After all, my Kunlun sect has always regarded finding the Kunlun mirror as the #1 priority for all the disciples in my sect. However, for so many years, Junior has never heard of any news about the Kunlun mirror in the Xiaoyu continent. Of course, this is Senior's secret. If it's inconvenient, you don't have to tell Junior." Actually it's nothing," Xiaohua said with a smile. "This Kunlun mirror is not a complete one. I got different fragments from different people and finally refined them together." Rock Border Sect. Just as Xiaohua finished speaking, Gu Yunzi's expression changed slightly, and he said in a low voice, "Junior understands. That year, my Kunlun sect heard that the Rock Border Sect had the Kunlun mirror and specially sent disciples to check it out. But the name of the magic treasure was Kunlun mirror, but its power didn't match the name of the Kunlun mirror. Moreover, the Kunlun mirror was only controlled by a golden core disciple. After my Kunlun sect disciples saw it, they returned in disappointment. Junior and the others didn't expect the ancient magic treasure to be broken. If it wasn't broken, how could it be scattered all over the Xiaoyu continent?" Xiaohua replied. "Yes, Junior understands." Gu Yunzi nodded and asked again, "Can Junior report this matter to the sect master?" Xiaohua said with a smile, "I used the Kunlun mirror to avoid people. Your sect master will know eventually." "Thank you, Senior." Gu Yunzi finished speaking and ate another immortal peach before saying, "Since Senior is so generous, I won't hide anything from you. My last thought is, although Senior has obtained the Kunlun mirror, have you obtained the true method of refining and activating the Kunlun mirror?" Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. He shook his head and said, "To tell you the truth, this old man really doesn't have the real method to refine and activate the Kunlun mirror. Now, I can only rely on what I obtained from refining the Kunlun mirror to barely activate the Kunlun fairyland." Hearing this, Gu Yunzi hurriedly got up, tidied up his Taoist robe, and took out a jade piece that looked like a magic cloud from his sleeve. He respectfully handed it to Xiaohua and said, "Senior, I am Gu Yunzi of Kunlun sect. I would like to invite you to Kunlun Mountain. Is it possible?" Seeing that Gu Yunzi was so serious, Xiaohua couldn't be rude. He hurriedly got up and put away the jade slip. He said with a smile, "Although I've never been to the Kunlun sect, I've heard of some of the deeds of the Kunlun sect, fellow Taoist. Now that I see your actions today, it's quite to my liking. I must go to the Kunlun sect. I hope the Kunlun sect won't disappoint me." After Xiaohua put away the jade slip, Gu Yunzi's heart calmed down. He said, "Junior can rest assured. According to what Junior knows, there is a method to refine and activate the Kunlun mirror in my Kunlun Mountain's secret territory. With Senior's strength and Senior's Fortune Gate's influence, I'm sure my sect master will consider inviting Senior to explore the Kunlun's secret territory." Kunlun's secret territory? Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. He asked curiously, "Is that a forbidden area of your Kunlun sect?" "Senior can understand it as a forbidden area." Gu Yunzi answered honestly, "Of course, Senior, you can also understand it as a forbidden area for our Kunlun sect to pass down our orthodoxy. It is said that there are many lost cultivation methods and secret skills of our Kunlun sect in there. Whenever a new sect leader takes over the position of sect leader, he must enter the secret realm to search for opportunities for himself and for Kunlun sect. If that's the case, this Xiao understands." Xiaohua nodded and said with a smile, "No wonder there are rumors in the Xiaoyu continent that your Kunlun sect has an inheritance. I'm afraid the root of it is here." Speaking of this, Xiaohua took out a dozen jade slips from his storage pouch and handed them to Gu Yunzi, saying, "In that case, it's impolite to visit. This is a gift from this Xiao to your Kunlun sect. Please bring it to your sect master, Taoist Xian Jing." When Gu Yunzi heard this, beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. He hurriedly said in a low voice, "Senior, my sect master's name is a little special. It's Xian Jing, there's no Taoist Xianjing. Xiaohua was a little embarrassed when he heard this. In fact, he didn't know who the Kunlun sect's sect master was. Before Zhen Qing left, she had asked him through voice transmission. At this time, he casually added two Taoist Xianjing. He. Xiaohua smiled and said, "It seems this Xiao was careless. In that case, this Xiao should apologize." Gu Yunzi naturally understood the meaning of Xiaohua's jade slip. He waved his hand and said, "Senior is too polite. Whether or not we can enter the Kunlun secret territory depends on our sect master. This junior doesn't dare to decide for our sect master. Junior also doesn't dare to accept these things on behalf of my Kunlun sect. Take a look first." Xiaohua smiled slightly and replied without surprise, "If you feel that it's inappropriate, you don't have to." Alright. Gu Yunzi certainly couldn't not give Xiaohua face. He took the jade slip and took one at random. He immersed his divine sense into it to take a look. Xiaohua laughed secretly. He wasn't afraid that Gu Yunzi would look at it. He was afraid that Gu Yunzi wouldn't look at it. He was also not afraid that Gu Yunzi would accept it. He was afraid that Gu Yunzi wouldn't accept it. Even the Yilin Continent's Heaven Alliance and Dao Alliance couldn't resist the temptation. How could the Kunlun sect master in the Lost Land resist it? Sure enough, as soon as Gu Yunzi's divine sense entered the jade slip, the expression on his face froze. The eagerness and disbelief in his eyes had already emerged like weeds. Gu Yunzi knew that it was extremely inappropriate for him to continue looking, but the contents of the jade slip were really tempting. He couldn't help but continue looking. After struggling for a few times, he finally withdrew his divine sense from the jade slip. Then he looked at the other dozen jade slips reluctantly. He didn't dare to release his divine sense anymore. Instead, he held the jade slips tightly in his hands. His palms were sweaty. He even looked up at Xiaohua nervously. He opened his mouth, but his mouth was a little dry. He didn't know what to say. "Don't be so nervous." Xiaohua smiled and said, "This is a gift from me to your Kunlun sect. Keep it first." As he spoke, Xiaohua took out a storage bag and handed it to Gu Yunzi, saying, "This is my gift to you." Really? Gu Yunzi really regretted asking such a stupid question. However, his eyes betrayed him again. It's just copying the contents of the jade slip. It's very simple." Xiaohua smiled and pointed out the things in the storage bag. "Other than that, there are the spirit fruits and some spirit herbs that you just ate. It's nothing. Just based on your request to go to Kunlun Mountain, these things are worth it." Hearing Xiaohua say that there were jade slips in the storage bag, Gu Yunzi's heart couldn't help but jump a few times. He closed his eyes and pondered for a moment. Then he opened his eyes and said with a smile, "Senior, you've given me too much. I'm a little afraid to accept it." "Don't worry," Xiaohua said indifferently, "this is not only for you, but also for the Kunlun sect. It's also for the cultivators of the Three Kingdoms and the Xiaoyu continent." Hiss. Gu Yunzi sucked in a breath of cold air. As if he understood something, he hurriedly bowed and said, "Junior thanks you on behalf of the cultivators of the Three Kingdoms. Please get up." Xiaohua smiled and helped Gu Yunzi up. "You can rest assured now, right?" "Yes, Junior can rest assured." Gu Yunzi calmly took the storage pouch from Xiaohua. Without even looking at it, he also put the dozens of jade slips into it and carefully hid them. He said, "Junior will now return to Kunlun Mountain through the night. I will report Senior's things and Senior's intentions to my sect leader." "And go back quickly." Xiaohua nodded. "When I have time, I'll pay a visit to your sect master." "Yes, Junior will wait for Senior's arrival at Kunlun Mountain." Gu Yunzi knew the importance of the storage bag on his body, so he didn't dare to stay here for long. After bidding farewell to Xiaohua, he immediately turned into a rainbow and soared into the sky. Seeing Gu Yunzi leave, Xiaohua smiled. He naturally knew that there was a Kunlun sect in the Lian country of the Xiaoyu continent, but he had never associated this Kunlun sect with the Kunlun mirror. He didn't expect to meet a disciple of the Kunlun sect today when he came to the blazing fire mountain to settle the karma. He even learned the secret of the Kunlun sect. Since the Kunlun secret territory was the forbidden area of the Kunlun sect, and only the sect masters of the Kunlun sect could enter, then it was obviously not so easy for Xiaohua to enter the Kunlun secret territory to find the method to refine and activate the Kunlun mirror. Xiaohua used the spiritual root selection method, the nascent soul cultivation method, the primordial spirit cultivation method, and even various cultivation methods and secret techniques obtained from the Yilin continent as a stepping stone. He didn't believe that the Kunlun sect wouldn't open the door to the Kunlun secret territory. "Let's go." Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "Follow Master to see the place where you lived when you were refining qi." "Yes, Master." Yuanya agreed and flew into the sky with Xiaohua, turning into a stream of light and disappearing. A few days later, Shang Huaming was already in sight, but when Xiaohua saw the place that he had been yearning for day and night, he couldn't help but frown slightly. The fog array around the yellow flower ridge had disappeared, and in front of the mountain peak, there were thousands of qi refining cultivators dressed in the 10,000 Flower Valleys uniform. Under the command of more than 10 Foundation establishment disciples, they were activating the yellow talisman magic weapons and other attacks. In this attack, the mysterious face of the yellow flower ridge was revealed. Behind the crumbling array, there were also thousands of disciples dressed in the 100 Grass Gates uniform waiting for the attack. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote for a recommendation vote, collect, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5100. Boom. Coincidentally, just as Xiaohua was frowning, the great formation of Yellow Flower Ridge collapsed. In a flash of light, the figures of thousands of 100 Herbs Gate disciples were exposed. Kill. The Foundation establishment disciples of 100 Herbs Gate roared. Thousands of disciples activated their yellow talismans and magic tools to form a great formation and rush towards the attacking disciples of 10,000 Flowers Valley. Kill. The disciples of 10,000 Flowers Valley were already prepared. Seeing the great formation of Yellow Flower Ridge collapse, their morale was immediately boosted. They also roared and rushed forward. For a moment, tens of thousands of aura refining disciples and Foundation establishment disciples were fighting. Seeing Xiaohua's figure slightly stop and frown, Yuanya hurriedly said, "Master, is this your master's gate? Should disciple go down and help them out?" "No need." Xiaohua slightly shook his head and looked somewhere. "He's not in a hurry, why should I be?" Yuanya was puzzled. He looked at the sky above Yellow Flower Ridge and saw a handsome male cultivator in gorgeous clothes with a cold smile on his face. He was indifferently watching the battle of Yellow Flower Ridge. Behind his back, he held an emerald jade ball in each hand. The jade ball spun strangely as the male cultivator's fingers nimbly rubbed it. Although the black silk and clouds cleverly concealed the male cultivator's figure, these concealments were almost useless in Yuanya's eyes. "Who is this demon?" Yuanya asked curiously. "It seems his strength is very weak." "This is Master's second senior brother." Xiaohua smiled. "His name is Zhang Qingxiao. He's a human who was possessed by a Di Luo beast." "And disciple understands?" Yuanya nodded. There was no change in his expression. Yuanya was extremely loyal to Xiaohua. Since Zhang Qingxiao was Xiaohua's second senior brother, he was Yuanya's second senior uncle. He definitely wouldn't look down on Zhang Qingxiao because he was possessed by a Di Luo beast. Xiaohua moved and Yuanya followed. Yuanya flew behind Zhang Qingxiao, but Zhang Qingxiao still didn't notice. Xiaohua suppressed the excitement in his heart and slightly bit his lips. After a while, he said in a low voice, "The battle at Yellow Flower Ridge is very fierce. Why don't you go down and take a look? No matter what, this 100 Herbs Gate is where you put your heart and soul into." As expected by Xiaohua, Zhang Qingxiao's figure stiffened. The jade ball that seemed to be flowing in his hand suddenly stopped. But after a few breaths, the jade ball slowly rotated again, and Zhang Qingxiao's reply came in neither fast nor slow. "Little junior brother, you're finally back. Alas, I knew you'd come back, but it's been too long, so long that I've almost forgotten that I still have a junior brother like you. Yellow Flower Ridge is my home." I will return sooner or later. Although it's been a long time, you're still my second senior brother, Xiao Hua said with a smile. His eyes were already moist. Through the hazy mist, Xiao Hua could clearly see that Zhang Qingxiao, who had turned around, was still as young and handsome as before. You old demon, why are you still so handsome? Xiao Hua sniffed and smiled as he stretched out his arms. Zhang Qingxiao looked at Xiao Hua's unchanged appearance and shook her head. You little monster, you're actually stronger than me? She stretched out her arms and hugged Xiao Hua. The reunion after hundreds of years was much warmer than the reunion of life and death in the early years. There was less suspicion and more concern. Zhang Qingxiao didn't even release his devil vision or divine sense. They patted each other's shoulders. All their concern was in this one pat. The two then let go. Without waiting for Xiao Hua to speak, Zhang Qingxiao first glanced at Yuanya and said to Xiao Hua, I really didn't expect that I'd be able to see you one last time before I die. Xiao Hua wasn't surprised at all. He smiled and said, Don't worry, little brother is back. Your problem is no longer a problem. Do you think that your death will solve everything? Don't let your imagination run wild. Zhang Qingxiao's face showed surprise. She asked curiously, How can you tell? Isn't it because you can't control the invasion of devil qi? Aren't you afraid that you'll turn into a devil and lose your consciousness? Xiao Hua smiled and said, Why can't I tell? Damn it. Zhang Qingxiao smiled bitterly. She touched her nose and said, Are you still my little junior brother who's only in the Golden Core realm? It's only been 682 years. You actually cultivated to such a terrifying level? Xiao Hua shrugged and said as if ridiculing, It's not that little brother's cultivation is fast, it's that second senior brother's cultivation is too slow. If you had the strength to pass the tribulation, little brother might have done it himself. Now that you're only in the late nascent soul realm, let little brother's disciple do it. This. Zhang Qingxiao curled her lips and said, You're just bragging, right? I didn't expect that after hundreds of years, your bragging skills would improve the fastest. Xiao Hua ignored Zhang Qingxiao and turned to Yuanya and said, Help your second senior uncle deal with the devil qi. Yes, master. Yuanya hurriedly flew over and bowed. Disciple greets second senior uncle. Quickly get up. It was fine for Zhang Qingxiao to joke with Xiao Hua, but when she saw the devil qi on Yuanya's body, she felt like an ant in front of this devil qi. How could she dare to let Yuanya salute her? He hurriedly tried to help Yuanya up, but just as he raised his hand to touch Yuanya's arm, he felt a strange suction force from Yuanya's arm. Before he could react, the nascent soul in his lower dantian, which had been eroded by the devil qi, suddenly became lighter and the devil qi that had been binding him was swept away. How is it? Xiao Hua said with a smile, It's just a small accident, second senior brother is too concerned. Zhang Qingxiao's matter was originally a piece of cake for Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua could do it himself. But when Xiao Hua heard Zhang Qingxiao say that it was the last time they would see each other before death, he knew that Zhang Qingxiao took this matter too seriously. Because of this, it would give birth to a knot in her heart, so she simply let Yuanya do it and let Zhang Qingxiao relax. Sure enough, when Zhang Qingxiao saw that the huge stone in her heart was easily removed by a junior, her handsome face blushed a little. She said with some embarrassment, This, cough cough, thank you for your trouble. I don't dare. Yuanya stood up respectfully and said, Disciple is a junior, serving second martial uncle is what I should do. Of course. Xiao Hua smiled and said, Second senior brother, don't be careless. Although your demon heart Dao seed technique is unique, it's actually very different from the real cultivation method of the demon clan. Similarly, it's also contrary to the cultivation method of my Dao cultivators. You'd better not try it for now. Wait for me to help you think of a foolproof plan. It won't be too late to cultivate then. Zhang Qingxiao naturally knew the drawbacks of her cultivation. Hearing Xiao Hua's words, she smiled bitterly and said, Do you think I want to cultivate like this? I have some devil cultivation methods, and I also obtained the condensed knowledge treasure when I was alive. All of a sudden, my Dao cultivation realm advanced by leaps and bounds. I can't give up the devil cultivation method, so I can't balance these two cultivation methods. To tell you the truth, I didn't dare to cultivate 20 years ago. Today is the last time I take a look at Yellow Flower Ridge. I have to make a decision. As for how to cultivate in the future, I can't see any hope. Don't worry. Xiaohua patted Zhang Qingxiao's shoulder and said, I have a Mahayana realm devil dragon here, who is also transforming from a human into a devil. You can ask him for advice. Moreover, I also have a devil lord friend, he can also give you advice. Damn it. Zhang Qingxiao suddenly jumped up and shouted, Little junior brother, could it be that you went to the devil realm in the past few hundred years? We'll talk about where I went later. Xiaohua smiled and raised his hand to point below and said, I'll talk about old times for a while. Your disciples and grand-disciples will be killed by the 10,000 Flower Valley. Hearing this, Zhang Qingxiao coldly snorted and said, What 10,000 Flower Valley disciple? He's just a Shanghua sect disciple who came to test us. As for the 100 Grass sect disciple, I can't even take care of myself, so I can't take care of them. What about senior sister? Xiaohua asked. Don't worry about junior sister's safety. I've already made arrangements. If there's any trouble in her residence, my heavenly demon sect will definitely come out in full force. Sun Yunzi still hasn't given up. Xiaohua slightly narrowed his eyes and said, Do you know where he is? Sun Yunzi is already an elder of Shanghua sect. He's not in Hua Yuanshan mountain range. Who knows where he went? Zhang Qingxiao said with a somewhat bitter smile, Other than Immortal Luni's death, I can't even find Fairy Ingjua's whereabouts. Fairy Ingzhua has already been possessed by a demon. Xiaohua said, and I've also imprisoned that demon. Xuanyan sect's enmity can be considered settled. Once I find Sun Yunzi, I can avenge my master. It seems that the demon has already told you everything? Zhang Qingxiao's face showed a trace of relief and asked. Xiaohua nodded, then looked down and said, I'd better kill these annoying flies first. Up to you. Zhang Qingxiao waved his hand and said, This place has already been exposed, I've already prepared to give up. Since you've already given up, then use this place as bait. Xiaohua smiled and took out the Kunlun mirror. As the mirror vibrated, Li Xiang and Xiong Yi flew out and hurriedly bowed. Greetings, master. Xiaohua raised his hand and pointed at Yellow Flower Ridge, saying, This is where I cultivated when I was refining qi, it's called Yellow Flower Ridge. In the future, it will be the Fortune Gates Foundation. Xiong Yi and Li Xiang looked down and understood. They replied in unison, Disciple understands. Good, I'll leave this matter to you. Xiaohua activated the Kunlun mirror again, and groups of Fortune Gate outer disciples flew out from the mirror, forming a battle formation in midair. The ones guarding the mountain are 100 Herbs Gates disciples, they're on our side. The ones attacking the mountain are the sects of Master's enemies. You guys decide what to do. Yes. Xiong Yi's gaze swept over the land, and a fierce light flashed in his eyes. He raised his hand and said, Disciples, although this old man has killed his way to Yellow Flower Ridge, P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Happy birthday to you. Chapter 5101. Kill. The crowd of Fortune Gate's outer disciples roared in unison, their voices shaking the heavens like war drums. Whether it was the Splendid Sect's disciples or the 100 Herbs Gate's disciples, all of them turned around in panic. While they were still dumbfounded, tens of thousands of Fortune Gate's disciples fell from the sky like a flood, majestically killing their way over, not to mention the 100 Herbs Gate and Splendid Sect's disciples. Even Zhang Qingxiao was dumbfounded. She thought that Xiaohua would order Yuanya to expel the besieging qi refinement disciples, but she didn't expect that Xiaohua would send out tens of thousands of ordinary disciples. Moreover, most of these disciples were Foundation Establishment cultivators. Tens of thousands of Foundation Establishment cultivators, this was the rhythm of sweeping through the three mainlands, Moreover, Zhang Qingxiao didn't think that Xiaohua, who was used to keeping a low profile and hiding his strength, would only have so many disciples in the Kunlun mirror. Just looking at Yuanya, who made her tremble in fear, Zhang Qingxiao knew that Xiaohua must have other backup plans in the Kunlun mirror. With such an iron army, not to mention the blood feud with Shang Huaming, it wouldn't be difficult to annihilate the Xuanyan School, Splendid Sect, and Seven Skills Sect. What kind of opportunity did junior brother encounter? Why is it so mysterious? Zhang Qingxiao was shocked and couldn't help but glance at Xiaohua again, inwardly thinking, it's only been a few hundred years, my heavenly demon sect didn't have such strength, and the Fortune Gate's forces that spread throughout the 3 countries and Huan country were only gradually showing their ferocity. How could his Fortune Gate be so powerful? It must be senior sister's life spirit tablet that let you know that junior brother is still alive in this world, right? Xiaohua asked without rhyme or reason. Zhang Qingxiao was naturally stunned, but after several breaths, she came to her senses and nodded. That's right, I learned that you were expelled from the Imperial Lightning Sect and then mysteriously disappeared. I didn't know whether you were alive or dead. Suddenly, I thought of Jiang Luer, as long as he's fine, you're naturally fine. So I hurried to Yellow Flower Ridge. I didn't dare to say too much to junior sister, so I only asked about the life spirit tablet. After knowing that you were safe and sound, I immediately left, afraid that junior sister would think too much. Yes, I also know a little about what happened after that. Xiaohua smiled and said, I've already met Yi-Yin in Million Mountain. Damn it. Zhang Qingxiao suddenly came to a realization and cursed angrily, this damned thing. I just received a message from him 2 days ago saying that he was preparing to return from Huan Kingdom. Why didn't he tell me? He. Xiaohua replied, it was little brother who didn't let him say it. Moreover, don't forget how you gave him the order, and how he reported it to you. Zhang Qingxiao came to a realization and snorted coldly. When I heard that he was returning from Huan Kingdom, I immediately scolded him. How would I understand the hidden meaning in his words? Second brother. Xiaohua looked at Zhang Qingxiao and said, thank you. Why are you thanking me? Zhang Qingxiao was a little puzzled. I've already seen Li Zongbao. Xiaohua explained, Yin met me when he risked his life to save Li Zongbao. And this guy is not bad, saving him from the Pillar of Heaven's Peak was not in vain. Zhang Qingxiao nodded non-committally, and didn't mention her death order at all. However, speaking up to here, Zhang Qingxiao suddenly came to a realization, and looked at Xiaohua with some disdain. I understand you're still worried about Laozi. You didn't let Yin tell me because you wanted to see if I would commit any crimes, right? How can little brother be worried about second brother? Xiaohua answered, little brother is worried about the heavenly demon sect. And I understand. Zhang Qingxiao watched as the Fortune Gate disciples ignored the fleeing Shanghua sect's disciples and only killed the Shanghua sect's disciples who were putting up a desperate struggle. Zhang Qingxiao said indifferently, your Fortune Gate is much more powerful than my heavenly demon sect. It's good that second brother understands. Xiaohua smiled and said, with you and me around, the Fortune Gate and heavenly demon sect won't have any big disputes. But if we're not around, it's inevitable that there will be conflicts. Little brother has to give some instructions to his disciples. Whatever. Zhang Qingxiao waved his hand and said, I've already agreed to let Yi-Yin return, and I'm ready to hand over the heavenly demon sect's matters to him. I want to save my own life first. And this is your heavenly demon sect's matter. It's inconvenient for little brother to participate. Xiaohua smiled, but Yi-Yin is a good candidate. Che. Zhang Qingxiao said, don't forget, you're my heavenly demon sect's deputy sect chief. If you say so, then so be it, I don't care. Xiaohua shrugged, looking even more shameless than Zhang Qingxiao. Zhang Qingxiao helplessly looked at Xiaohua and shook his head, saying, but there's something I need to tell you clearly. This Yi-Yin is no longer the child we saved on the Pillar of Heaven's Peak. Xiaohua was surprised and asked curiously, what do you mean? I remember I saw him afterwards. I didn't see anything strange about him. It's very simple. Zhang Qingxiao thought for a while and said, back then, I was angry that you were expelled by the Imperial Thunder Sect, and I knew that you were very nostalgic and wouldn't bear to let anyone touch the Imperial Thunder Sect. So, I vented my anger on the Black Sky Sect. After that battle, my heavenly demon sect made a name for itself, but we also suffered a lot of losses. This child and a deputy sect chief of Tiangang sect named Yin were injured at the same time, and both of their injuries were very serious. I could only save one, and that Yin was from the same mysterious family as this child, so I sympathized with him and would rather die to save him. So I merged the two of them into one. In order to commemorate Yin and to conceal his origin, this child changed his name to Yin. However, Yin's performance in these past few years was extremely good, and it exceeded my expectations. He's really a good candidate. Xiaohua smiled bitterly and said, You don't have to tell me. It's rare for me to do a good deed, and it's even done together with you. Zhang Qingxiao stretched and said, If I don't tell you the details of this child that I saved, how can it be done? Up to you. Xiaohua waved his hand, and his heart felt warm. All right. Zhang Qingxiao suddenly thought of something and asked, Do you know who the two nascent soul cultivators who chased after you were? I don't know. However, I've seen their faces. If they didn't disguise themselves, I would be able to recognize them. Xiaohua replied, Of course, I heard from Yin that you've already started investigating, so I'm too lazy to look for any clues. Take a look. While speaking, Zhang Qingxiao took out a jade slip from her bosom and threw it to Xiaohua, saying, This is the image of the nascent soul cultivators of the Dawn Rain continent. Of course, I can't guarantee that I won't miss any of them. Also, I don't have the ability to find all the dead or missing nascent soul cultivators. Xiaohua took the jade slip and scanned it with his divine sense for a moment. His face turned cold as he said, No need to say any more. I've already seen the faces of those two nascent soul cultivators. Zhang Qingxiao was delighted and said, Are you sure? Will they change their appearance? At that time, I had just condensed my core. In their eyes, that chase was inevitable. At first, they hid their figure and appearance, but in the end, when they really tracked me down, they were already unscrupulous. Why would they think of changing their appearance? Xiaohua said coldly, These two nascent soul cultivators are Shan Xingzi from the Immortal Ascension sect and Taoist Du Yi from the Immortal Music sect. The Immortal Ascension sect and the Immortal Music sect of Meng country? Zhang Qingxiao was at a loss. She scratched her head and said curiously, Before the Sword War, you seem to have never been to Meng country, right? How could you offend the Immortal Ascension sect and the Immortal Music sect? Could it be that you suddenly snatched the two daughters of these two nascent soul cultivators? I've been thinking about this for a long time. It shouldn't be something that happened after I went to Shanghuaming. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes and said, If it's related to the two sects of Meng country, it should be something that happened before I went to Shanghuaming. However, the problem is that I can't remember anything before Shanghuaming. If there's no accident, my soul was searched. I'm afraid this soul search has something to do with these two nascent soul cultivators. Zhang Qingxiao was about to speak, but Xiaohua spoke first. Second senior brother, I'll talk about this after I see senior sister. How should we deal with your 100 Herbs sect now? Since you've come back and are ready to avenge Master, this 100 Herbs sect naturally doesn't need to exist anymore. Zhang Qingxiao thought for a moment and said, According to our previous agreement, reinstate Shanghuaming. Shanghuaming? Xiaohua hesitated slightly and replied, Shanghuaming is not very suitable. I'll explain the specific reasons to second senior brother and senior sister later. After I finish, you can make a decision. At this time, you can take away the disciples of the Heavenly Devil sect in the 100 Herbs sect. The other disciples of the 100 Herbs sect can stay. Zhang Qingxiao nodded and agreed, I'll personally go down and give the order. He, great sect master Zhang, please. Xiaohua smiled and raised his hand. Xiaohua, Zhang Qingxiao, and Yuanya descended from the sky. Zhang Qingxiao ordered the Heavenly Demon sect's disciples to withdraw, then took out the 100 Herbs Gates Gate Chief's token and ordered all 100 Herbs Gates disciples to rest. Xiaohua ordered Xiong Yi and Li Xiang to reorganize the Fortune Gate's disciples in preparation for the establishment of the Fortune Gate. After everything was arranged, Zhang Qingxiao brought Xiaohua and flew to the Cherishing Flower Peak. As Xiaohua expected, the herb garden on the Cherishing Flower Peak was still the same. Several early gold core cultivators were hidden near the herb garden. Obviously, they were sent by Zhang Qingxiao to protect Xiao Xianrui. Seeing Zhang Qingxiao appear, everyone flew out to greet her. Zhang Qingxiao looked at everyone and thought for a moment. She took out some rewards from her bosom and ordered them to return. She then said to Xiao Hua, "Junior brother, I've withdrawn these experts. I'll leave junior sister's safety to you." P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate, and... Chapter 5102. Don't worry, second senior brother. Xiao Hua said as he activated the Kunlun mirror, sending out 10 Fortune Gate disciples with Severing Divinity Realm Cultivation, and ordered them to protect the cherishing Flower Peak. Your grandmother? Zhang Qingxiao cursed when he saw the 10 disciples whose cultivation he couldn't see through. You're just showing off in front of me. After she finished speaking, Zhang Qingxiao's figure landed in front of the herb garden on Xihua Peak. She raised her hand and lightly knocked on the wooden door of the herb garden. Xiao Hua could clearly see that the herb garden was enveloped by a powerful array. Although there was no sound when Zhang Qingxiao knocked on the wooden door, the movement of the array had already spread into the herb garden. Sure enough, a moment later, Xiao Xianrui's familiar voice sounded, "Who is it?" "Junior sister, it's me." Zhang Qingxiao's voice was lower and gentler. "Oh, it's second senior brother." Although Xiao Xianrui's voice was very affectionate, there was also a trace of disappointment. "You haven't been to Yellow Flower Ridge for a long time." As the wooden door opened, a corner of the array was torn open. Xiao Xianrui walked out and said, "Today, I don't know." Before Xiao Xianrui could finish, she had already seen Xiao Hua's thin and tall figure behind Zhang Qingxiao. Xiao Xianrui was stunned on the spot. She stared at Xiao Hua, her lips trembling. She wanted to say something but couldn't. Finally, she mustered all her strength and asked in a low and hoarse voice, "Where's Lu?" "Is fine." Xiao Hua had just seen Zhang Qingxiao, and the feelings in his heart had already been vented. At this time, he wasn't too excited and only said with a smile, "Moreover, he has already become the Buddhist sect's Buddha of Xuanji merit and has become an existence revered by thousands of Buddhas." Finally hearing the news that her child was safe, Xiao Xianrui couldn't bear it anymore. Her whole body seemed to have been drained of strength, and she collapsed to the ground. The life spirit tablet that Zhang Qingxiao had refined in the past appeared in her right hand. Back then, Xiao Hua only said that he would take Jianghu to find a Buddhist sect expert, but she didn't expect that it would be more than 600 years. It had been more than 600 years, and his fate was unknown. Today, he finally heard the news, but he still couldn't see the flesh and blood he had been longing for day and night. Xiao Hua didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly raised his hand to support Xiao Xianrui. Although his eyes were red, he still said, "Senior sister, I'm very sorry. You can't see Lu for the time being." "Why?" Xiao Xianrui raised her hand and grabbed Xiao Hua's arm tightly as if she had used all her strength. She cried, "Even if he has become a Buddha, he is still my child. Why can't I see him?" "It's very simple," Xiao Hua answered honestly. "Because the realm Lu is in is not the Dawn Rain continent." Interface? Xiao Xianrui was stunned and asked curiously, "What does interface mean? Could it be that is not in the Dawn Rain continent?" Xiao Hua looked at Xiao Xianrui's white hair and wrinkled face with heartache. He instantly thought of old G-Man in the Huda village. These two mothers had both taken the rejuvenation pill. Although his rejuvenation pill was magical, it couldn't resist the poison of longing for their children in their hearts. Xiao Hua sighed with emotion at the innate love of the mothers in the world. He said, "Senior sister, don't worry. Please go back to the medicine garden and let me tell you slowly." Yes. Xiao Xianrui hurriedly wiped the tears on her face and said apologetically, "Look at me. You haven't come back for hundreds of years. As soon as you came back, I blocked the door and didn't even let you in. If Wu knew, he would scold me again. Quick, come in." Speaking of this, Xiao Xianrui saw Yuanya behind Xiao Hua and Zhang Qingxiao. She asked doubtfully, This is my disciple?" Xiaohua hurriedly said, "Yeah, come and pay your respects." Disciple greets martial ant. Yuanya didn't dare to neglect and hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. Xiao Xinrui couldn't see through Yuanya's strength. She hurriedly helped him up. Xiaohua's heart moved and said, "Ah, this is Chuanzong's mother. You also know about Chuanzong's sutra seeking in paradise." Xiaohua actually didn't remember whether Yuanya knew about Chuanzong's sutra seeking in paradise or whether Chu Yuanya had seen Chuanzong. He just wanted to make Xiao Xianrui feel at ease. Xiaohua's words fell into Yuanya's ears. Yuanya's face was full of reverence. After saluting Xiao Xinrui, he stood up and said, "Martial ant, so you are Chuanzong's mother. Although Disciple has never seen you, Disciple has heard of Chuanzong's deeds of walking for nearly 300 years. His footprints have traveled all over the hidden Immortal continent and paradise. Thousands of Buddhist believers in the hidden Immortal continent, hundreds of millions of good men and women have obtained paradise because of Chuanzong's merits. This kind of tenacity, this kind of kindness to the world, Disciple will never be able to achieve it even if Disciple cultivates for a lifetime." Yuanya was naturally not good with words, but it was these pertinent words in Xiao Xinrui's ears that felt real. She smiled proudly and said, "This is what he should do." When he was still young, he had a great ambition. Now that he can finally realize it, I am happy for him. I hope that you can help each other in the future and do more useful things for the people of the world. Yes, Disciple understands. Yuanya nodded. Disciple will learn more from senior brother. Xiaohua saw that Xiao Xinrui's spirit was greatly uplifted. In just a few breaths, the previous depression and worry were swept away. He was also quite happy. Knowing that his move was completely correct, he ordered, "Yeah, you stay here and guard. I will say a few words to your martial uncles. Don't let others disturb us." Disciple understands. Yuanya stepped back and stood at the side of the medicine garden's gate. "Let the child come in and sit." Xiao Xinrui saw Yuanya as if she saw Jianghu. She said with some distress, "It's not easy to return to Yellow Flower Ridge. He should also take a rest." "Let's go." Zhang Qingxiao rolled her eyes at Xiaohua and said to Xiao Xinrui, "Just let him be your guard. A cultivator comparable to a cultivator in the crossing tribulation stage is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to guard the herb garden of Xihua Peak." Xiao Xinrui was surprised. She looked at Yuanya in disbelief. She really didn't expect that this cultivator, who felt like her own child, was actually so high. Luer is more powerful than him. Xiaohua only said one sentence, but Xiao Xinrui's proud tears fell like rain. Zhang Qingxiao was speechless. He really didn't understand how a woman could cry so much. Xiao Xinrui was like this, and Zhang Yutong was also like this. However, he knew that at this time, it was absolutely not appropriate to speak. He only needed to wait patiently. In the end, the sky would clear up after the rain. Sure enough, in less than half a cup of tea's time, Xiao Xinrui smiled again. Compared to before, she was much more charming. She said with a smile, "I've let you see a joke. Quickly come in." Xiaohua's understanding was no worse than Zhang Qingxiao's. At this time, just like Zhang Qingxiao, he didn't say a word and quietly followed Xiao Xinrui into the medicine garden. However, when he saw the situation of the medicine garden, his heart couldn't help but moisten. The medicine garden was still the same medicine garden. For hundreds of years, there hadn't been any special changes. The medicine field hadn't been opened up too much, and there weren't too many spiritual herbs planted. The tender green spiritual herbs and the fluttering spiritual flowers swayed gently in the wind. Everything was so quiet that Xiaohua suddenly felt that he had returned to the past. However, unlike before, there was a tent set up with a restriction in the medicine garden. This was also where Jianghu had fallen into silence. If it wasn't unexpected, Xiao Xinrui should have lived here for the past hundreds of years by relying on her longing. Sure enough, Xiao Xinrui walked into the tent. Xiaohua and Zhang Qingxiao looked at each other, their eyes full of bitterness, and followed her in. The inside of the tent was extremely simple and crude. There was only a futon, a jade cabinet, and nothing else. The jade cabinet didn't have any restriction. At a glance, Xiaohua knew that most of the clothes inside were the clothes worn by Jianghu when he was young. His nose couldn't help but sour. Second senior brother, little junior brother, you can sit anywhere you want. Xiao Xinrui said apologetically. I don't have anything here. It's fine, it's fine. Without waiting for Zhang Qingxiao to speak, Xiaohua hurriedly took out 2 futons and threw them on the ground. He and Zhang Qingxiao took one each. Then he took out a jade table and placed some spiritual fruits on it. The spiritual fruits were tempting, and the immortal peach smelled sweet, but how could Xiao Xianrui have any appetite? She held back her eagerness. When Xiaohua placed the spiritual fruits on the table, she asked impatiently, Little junior brother, quickly tell me about Luer's situation these years. Okay. Xiaohua picked up an immortal peach and handed it to Xiao Xianrui. Senior sister, try it first. You tell me first. Xiao Xianrui didn't even look at the immortal peach and said, It won't be too late for me to eat after you finish. Xiaohua then handed the immortal peach to Zhang Qingxiao. After thinking for a moment, he said, Then I'll tell you everything about leaving the Dawn Rain continent. Then, Xiaohua once again gave a general account of his experience, among which he talked about Jiang Luer's matter and the matter of Nirvana scripture seeking in particular detail. Although the words came from Xiaohua's mouth, in Xiao Xianrui's ears, it was as if she was drifting on the river with Jiang Luer. It was as if she was climbing the steep mountain ridges of the Nirvana realm, the boundless land of the hidden immortal continent. Her expression was sometimes nervous, sometimes relaxed. In the end, when she heard Xiaohua say that Jiang Luer had attained the Buddha of Xuanji meritorious virtue, a tranquil Buddhist light appeared on her face. After Xiaohua finished talking about Jiang Luer's journey to the west, he hesitated for a moment and stopped. He smiled and handed the immortal peach to Xiao Xianrui. Senior sister, this is all I know about Lu. Now, he's already an extraordinary figure in the Buddhist sect. He doesn't need my protection anymore. He has the attention of the gods and Buddhas all over the sky. He has the heavy trust of hundreds of millions of believers on his shoulders. Although he's your boy, he's also the Buddha Lord of the Buddhist kingdom. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5103. Buddha Lord. Zhang Qingxiao had been possessed by a demon. Hearing this, he was shocked. Of course, he knew about the past, present, and future Buddha lords of the Buddhist sect, but he didn't know who this Buddha of Xuanji merit was. However, Zhang Qingxiao didn't ask too much. Whether the Buddha Lord was the Buddha Lord or not, it didn't have anything to do with him, a little devil. He didn't know how many years later he, a devil, and the Buddha Lord that Xiaohua spoke of, would have a lot of disputes. Yes. Xiao Xianrui smiled happily, tears flowing down her cheeks. I know, but I still can't let it go. Since he already got the Buddha fruit, why did he go west? Where is he heading west? Xiaohua naturally wouldn't tell Xiao Xianrui the secret of the Buddhist sect. He hesitated and smiled. Luer is going west, to go back to the Dawn Rain continent, to Yellow Flower Ridge. Ah? Xiao Xianrui was shocked and looked at Xiaohua incredulously. Little junior brother, you said he's going to come back from the sea in the east? Not only was Xiao Xianrui surprised, but Zhang Qingxiao was also confused. He had been to the Kuai-He Sea personally. He finally asked, since the 3 continents and the Dawn Rain continent are not in the same realm, how could Luer come from the Kuai-He Sea? There's an immortal formation here. Xiaohua then told him the shocking secret that no one knew and the world-destroying mayfly of the 3 continents. I knew it. Zhang Qingxiao heard and smiled bitterly. How could you be willing to come back? So it's to save the world. If not, how could you be willing to cross the border and come back? You're such a sentimental good person, you can never change your character. What's wrong with being a sentimental good person? Xiao Xianrui retorted. A sentimental good person can save people from disaster. This is a great merit. Xiao Xianrui was short-sighted and couldn't say anything. But hearing that Xiaohua and Jiang Luer were merciful, she immediately stood on the side of Xiaohua. Zhang Qingxiao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said, Junior sister, I'm not talking about this. However, as soon as he finished speaking, he realized that it was impossible for him to get through to Xiao Xianrui, so he stopped and asked, "Forget it, let's not talk about this. Tell me about the matter of returning to Dawn Rain Continent. It's definitely extremely difficult." "Sigh indeed." Xiao Huan nodded emotionally, then picked up another immortal peach and handed it to Xiao Xianrui. "Senior sister, this can make up for your lifespan. You should eat one too. You don't have much time left. If you don't eat, I'm afraid you won't be able to hold on until Lu returns." "All right." Hearing that they had to wait for Jianghu to come back, Xiao Xianrui no longer hesitated. She took the peach and ate it. If one was not enough, she would take another one. Zhang Qingxiao was a little dumbfounded. Looking at Xiao Xianrui, who was eating in a somewhat embarrassing manner, she whispered, "Junior sister, we are Buddha mothers. Can you pay attention to your image? You're already a middle-aged woman, what image do you need?" Xiao Xianrui rolled her eyes at Zhang Qingxiao and continued to gnaw on the peach. Her white hair gradually turned black. "I'll eat too." Seeing this, Zhang Qingxiao hurriedly stretched out her hands, one in each hand, and started chewing. This rare situation made Xiao Hua think of Xiao Hongyue and Gong Mingwei. Sigh, the creation of heaven and earth is incomparably wonderful. Although this Xiao has just grasped the power of life and death, and also has the ability to resurrect the dead, but in the face of the passage of time, I still have no ability. Xiao Hua sighed and said in his heart, "If this Xiao could really cultivate the light escape technique, would I be able to go against the light and resurrect Xiao Hongyue and Gong Mingwei when this Xiao had just arrived at Yellow Flower Ridge?" Of course, Xiao Hua was just thinking about it. After all, Xiao Hongyue and Gong Mingwei had already reincarnated. If he went against the light and resurrected them, what about their identities in this life? Could it be that their identities in many lives would be erased? This was a good fortune for Xiao Hongyue and Gong Mingwei, but for other identities, wouldn't it be a great injustice? After the two finished eating, Xiao Hua took out some spirit wine and invited the two to taste. He also accompanied them. While drinking, he told them the important things about passing through the 10,000 demon realm and the Yilin continent. Although Zhang Qingxiao had obtained the inheritance of the demon race, her vision was still not enough, let alone Xiao Xianrui. The two listened to the story as if they were listening to a book. In the end, Zhang Qingxiao even clapped her hands and said, "Little junior brother, your experience is too wonderful. If I didn't know that you wouldn't lie to me, I would definitely think that you made this up." Xiao Hua touched his nose and drank a mouthful of spirit wine. This little brother also wants to treat these things as nothingness, treat everything as an ethereal dream. Unfortunately, the billions of creatures in the 3 continents are waiting for this little brother. Damn it. Zhang Qingxiao suddenly realized, isn't Lu also under the threat of the world-exterminating ephemera? Why didn't you bring him with you? Xiao Xianrui instantly became nervous. "Senior sister, second senior brother, don't worry." Xiao Hua replied, "The West Sea is now the world of our fortune gate. As long as Lu enters the West Sea, he will be protected by the Fortune Gate's disciples. If Lu is harmed, our Fortune Gate will be destroyed. Moreover, the Mahavairakana World Lord and the Dipankara Archaic Buddha World Lord are still in the Pure Land. They won't let Lu get hurt." "That's good." Xiao Xianrui heaved a sigh of relief. However, Zhang Qingxiao asked curiously, "Where is the Maitreya Buddha World Lord?" "He came back with this little brother to save the world." Xiao Hua didn't hide anything and replied, "Damn it, if that's the case, you still have the nerve to drink here?" Zhang Qingxiao jumped up and said, "Hurry up and break the formation." "Second senior brother." Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry and said, "This is an immortal formation. It's very likely that it was laid down by some heavenly lord or immortal king. How can it be so easy to break?" "Damn it, heavenly lord? Immortal king?" Hearing this, Zhang Qingxiao curled the corner of her mouth and said, "I don't know much, so don't lie to me. How can those high and mighty fellows care about the matters of the Dawn Rain continent? This little brother doesn't know the specific situation." Xiao Hua replied, But this little brother knows that this great formation is already erected between the 3 continents and the Dawn Rain continent. If we can't find the trick to breaking the formation, even 100 little brothers won't be able to break the formation with just strength. You haven't even seen it, so how do you know it won't work? Zhang Qingxiao sat down dejectedly and didn't forget to ask. Actually, when this little brother came out from the Million Meng Mountains, I already went to the Tai Ching Sect's Heaven, Earth, and Mortal Peaks to take a look. Xiao Hua's spring and autumn movement technique trembled slightly and said with a smile. However, this little brother couldn't find any traces of breaking the formation from the 3 peaks. Other than being helpless, I was at my wit's end, so I could only put it down for now. Speaking until here, Xiaohua looked at Zhang Qingxiao and said, Second Senior Brother's Heavenly Devil Sect is spread all over the Dawn Rain continent. If possible, Second Senior Brother, please lend this little brother a hand. My Heavenly Devil Sect? Zhang Qingxiao sneered. My Heavenly Devil Sect can't compare to the Fortune Gate in front of us, nor can it compare to the Fortune Gate spread all over the Dawn Rain continent. Do you still need my help? Although Zhang Qingxiao said so, he still hurriedly got up and left in a hurry. A moment later, he returned and said, This old man has issued the Heavenly Devil Order. I hope it can help you a little, but don't hold any hope. This kind of ancient secret is probably only known by the Dao Cultivation sects and Swords Gate with long inheritances. Yes, this little brother also knows this. Xiao Hua nodded. This little brother is waiting for a suitable opportunity to announce this matter to the world. You're thinking too much. Zhang Qingxiao coldly said, What does the life and death of the 3 continents have to do with the Dawn Rain continent? Only a merciful person like you would consider it. Other cultivators would only listen with one ear and throw out the other. Then let the Fortune Gate's Iron Army sweep through the entire Dawn Rain continent. Xiao Hua said indifferently, Break through these sects one by one and explore their forbidden areas. Little junior brother. Xiao Xianrui was a little confused and asked curiously, Why don't I understand? Isn't the Fortune Gate a sect that rose in the last few hundred years? What does it have to do with you? Junior sister doesn't know. Zhang Qingxiao said with interest, The Fortune Gate worships Taoist Xiao is this little junior brother in front of you. He is the true leader of the Fortune Gate. Xiao Xianrui opened her mouth in surprise and said after a while, If that's the case, then little junior brother does have the potential to flatten the 3 countries. You're only talking about potential, junior sister. You go and see for yourself. Zhang Qingxiao stood up and said, The current Yellow Flower Ridge is no longer the 100 Herbs Gate's world, but the Fortune Gate's Mountain Gate. What's going on? Xiao Xianrui was stunned, and then said, I'm sorry, Second Senior Brother, this concubine hasn't asked about the 100 Herbs Gate for a long time. What happened at Yellow Flower Ridge? This concubine doesn't know. It's not your fault. Zhang Qingxiao waved her hand and said, You're not the person to be the sect master, and I'm already very satisfied that you've been here for so long. Ah. Xiao Hua saw the 2 of them stand up, and he hurriedly stood up and said, Little brother came back this time with the intention of reorganizing Shanghuaming, but there are some unforeseen circumstances. Then, Xiao Hua accompanied Xiao Xianrui and Zhang Qingxiao out of the herb garden, and briefly explained the matter of Dark Flower. Xiao Xianrui and Zhang Qingxiao frowned when they heard that Shanghuaming's origin was so strange, and that it was actually founded by the demonic beast race's great sage, and that many ancestors were killed by the founder. Finally, Xiao Hua said, Little brother has captured Dark Flower, and I have already settled all the karma between him and me. Moreover, Dark Flower took the initiative to ask me, Shanghuaming, not to mention his name again, so I want to put my Fortune Gate in Yellow Flower Ridge. However, Shanghuaming is the sect of Second Senior Brother, Senior Sister, and Little Brother, so this matter will be decided by the 2 of you. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it a reward, and thank you for all kinds of support.